Thank you. Good morning, and welcome to the New York City hybrid hearing on the Committee on Oversight and Investigation, together with the Committee on Health and the Committee on Environmental Protection. At this time, please silence all electronic devices. There will be no eating and drinking in the chambers. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Gail Brewer, I'm Chair of the City Council's Committee on Oversight and Investigations. Today we are holding a hearing to discuss a recent environmental and health crisis that was likely just a preview of climate threats yet to come to our city and perhaps other places. It was the early June Canadian wildfires and the impact on our air quality, which was terrible. When smoke descended on New York last month, New Yorkers were shocked to see the sky blotted out and find the air was dangerous to breathe. They looked to state and local leaders for guidance during this unprecedented incident. However, to many people, it appeared that our local executives and agency chiefs had little advice to offer on how to stay safe or aid to provide. We seem behind the curve, at least to some people, and I know that's what we're going to be discussing today. In fairness, this was an unprecedented challenge that city agencies had not ever confronted before. Some would say it was, however, foreseeable. For years, scientists have warned us that rising global temperatures would lead to changing weather patterns, climate disasters, direct harms to our health. And mayoral administrations over years have focused public health agencies on monitoring air quality, and we'll talk more about that. The early June wildfire emergency was the first of its kind, but it didn't come out of nowhere. The council wants to understand what the administration knew about the threat posed by the smoke from the wildfires and when. We need to know how the mayor and the city agencies acted on the information and whether they took advantage of tools and expertise to meet the challenge as early as possible. And we need to know how this information was evaluated, what the response to the air quality emergency was, to make sure that we have good information in the future. We need to also understand how the administration plans to meet crises in the future. This was the first of its kind, but it won't be the last. Threats to air quality are one part of our new environmental normal. We also have rising sea levels, as we know, heat, storms. We have to plan for these threats. We have snowstorms. We have all kinds of irregular weather events. Like the June smoke emergency, it's challenging and it's scary, but we're capable of rising to these challenges. Before we begin, I would like to thank the Oversight and Investigations Committee staff, Council Nicole Cotta, Policy Analyst Alex Yablon for all their hard work, certainly members of the OID Division, Director Aaron Mendelson, Deputy Director Meg Powers, Counsel Kevin Frick, Lead Investigator Zach Maher, and my staff, Sam Goldsmith. And I'd like to now turn it over to Health Chair Lynn Schulman.
Thank you, Chair Brewer. Good morning, everyone. I am Councilmember Lynn Schulman, Chair of the Committee on Health. I want to thank all of you for joining us at today's joint oversight hearing. The purpose of today's hearing is to examine the city's response to the first air quality emergency in early June, and to also discuss how the city can best respond to such emergencies, communicate effectively with the public, and protect the most vulnerable New Yorkers going forward. With wildfires proliferating around the globe, it's indisputable that very poor air quality from wildfire smoke can contribute to adverse health effects, even for those who are considered reasonably healthy. According to the CDC, breathing in wildfire smoke can have an immediate impact, including coughing, trouble breathing normally, stinging eyes, headaches, fast heartbeat, and chest pain. Older adults, pregnant people, children, and those with pre-existing respiratory and heart conditions may be even more likely to get sick from breathing in wildfire smoke. According to data provided by the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, asthma-related emergency room visits increased during the first air quality emergency in early June. an increase not seen since April when tree pollen levels were at their highest. As the chair of the Council's Committee on Health, it is my responsibility to ensure that the well-being of all New Yorkers is sufficiently addressed and that New Yorkers are armed with the necessary information and tools to protect themselves during these types of emergencies. What we witnessed in early June with dangerous air quality levels was unprecedented. Clearly, this is not something we have previously experienced, and the city responded in the best way possible, given that the most reliable data that was available about air quality was limited. That said, we can certainly do better. Air quality emergencies appear to be a new norm for New York City, and we must be prepared. Today, I'm looking forward to hearing from the administration on the lessons we've learned from responding to this public health threat, as well as from the public on how we can best protect the health of all New Yorkers going forward. I want to conclude by thanking the committee staff for their work on this hearing, committee counsels Chris Pepe and Sarah Sucher, and policy analyst Manor Butt, as well as my team, Chief of Staff Jonathan Boucher, and Legislative Director Kevin McAleer. I will now turn it over to Chair Gennaro for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Chair Schulman and Chair Brewer. It is a real delight to be able to co-chair this hearing with you. Thank you very much for having me. Good morning. I'm Jim Gennaro, Chair of the Committee on Environmental Protection, Resiliency, and Waterfronts. And we're here today, as you know, with the Committee on Oversight and Investigation and the Committee on Health to examine the administration's response to the air quality emergencies that have occurred this summer. The Canadian wildfires have made it painfully clear that the city needs a robust response plan for events such as these. Much of my statement has already been said. I'll try to cut it back. Fine particles, that is particulate matter, 2.5 microns or less, what we call PM 2.5, are the main pollutant in wildfire smoke and pose the greatest health risk, as the small size enables these particles to penetrate deep into the lungs and enter the bloodstream. Many studies have shown an association between exposure to particulate pollution and severe health risks. Also, volatile organic chemicals in wildfire smoke can interact with sunlight to form ozone. That's the phenomenon that's happening today when you have VOCs that mix in extreme heat and create smog or ozone, which is an irritant to the lung. Exposure to ozone can cause headaches, coughing, dry throat, shortness of breath, worsening asthma symptoms and fluid in the lungs, higher level of exposure leading to more severe symptoms. You get the idea. Children are at greater risk from exposure to ozone because the lungs are still developing and they're more likely to be active outdoors, and ozone levels are high, which increases their exposure. And they're also more likely than adults to have asthma. New York City must warn residents prior to when air quality is unhealthy, if that is predictable, like it was today, when we know the temperature is going to be X and like the surface conditions are Y, and you add that and you have an ozone alert like we have today. So New York City must warn residents prior to when air quality is unhealthy. Ideally, this should take place several days in the case of the Canadian thing before there's likely to be an air quality emergency, so that residents have sufficient time to plan accordingly. We must also make sure that the city has a plan to distribute the necessary PPE and PPE efficiently and broadly, particularly in the most vulnerable communities. We've known that climate change means more severe weather events will continue happening with increased frequency. Let this serve as a wake-up call that emergency preparedness planning needs to look beyond the threats from hurricanes and sea level rise. Before I turn it back over to the chairs, I'd like to thank the great committee staff who've done great work over the years. To my right, we have the Council Samara Swanson. She's terrific. Legislative analyst Claire, help me out there. McLaughlin, is that right?
McLaughlin.
She's new, right?
Yes.
Okay, she's new, but very good. This is kind of an open thing. I just, you get what you get with Jim Gennaro. Legislative analyst Claire, I just said her. Policy analyst Ricky Chawler, my buddy, and Andrew Bourne, also my buddy. Financial analyst Angela Lane Lawless, third buddy. And finally, my legislative director, the great Nabi Kaur, for all their hard work. I'd like to shout out the members of my committee that are here. We have me, and we have Councilmember Nurse. I would expect other members of the committee will be joining us, and it's also my understanding that I spoke to the DEP commissioner, and he indicated that someone from DEP was going to be available to answer questions. Okay, great. Oh, Beth. Okay, it's going to be Beth. That is great. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to the two chairs, and once again, I'm very grateful to be part of this important hearing.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to hear from Public Advocate Jumaane Williams based on his report and opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. As mentioned, my name is Jumaane Williams. I'm Public Advocate of the City of New York. I'd like to thank Chair Shulman, Brewer, and Gennaro, and the members of the Committees on Health Oversight and Investigations and Environmental Protection, Resiliency, and Waterfronts for holding this important hearing. Also, Commissioner and the administration for being here. Just 4 weeks ago, our city faced an unprecedented air quality crisis when smoke from over 400 wildfires in Canada were pushed into our city. Unlike our West Coast sister cities, who routinely deal with wildfire smoke and its harmful effects due to drought and long wildfire seasons, New Yorkers were not prepared for the poor air quality that arose during the week of June 4th. The COVID-19 pandemic should have prepared us in delivering speedy and accurate communication around this issue. Instead, there seems to have been failures to respond to this event, and I think that was not just on the city level, but on all levels of government, state, and federal. Over the past few weeks, my office has been corresponding with officials from the West Coast municipalities like Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and San Diego, some who may actually be viewing us remotely, gathering best practices and resources on how New York City can best respond to this crisis when it arises in the future. As we've seen over these past few weeks, with a mere shift of the wind, wildfire smoke has the ability to impact New Yorkers' daily life, and we must be prepared to meet those instances as they arise. From these conversations, we compile a list of recommendations, which can be read in our report, Orange Sky Red Alert, that we urge our city and state partners to implement in order to proactively respond to these air quality issues as they arise. This report also finds shortcomings in the city's response to air quality emergency, and particularly the lack of speed and scope of public information system and hazard mitigation efforts. As we've seen, climate change is rapidly reshaping natural hazards at our alarming rate of pace, and it will not wait for us to be prepared, but it's no longer enough to reflect and develop plans for what we've already encountered thus far. We must also anticipate and prepare for the unforeseen in order to keep our city safe and healthy. I do want to just say, notwithstanding the mayor's comments that folks are criticizing just to criticizing, nothing can be further from the truth. It is part of my job to make sure that we review and look at what the city's doing and that we can do things better. I also just want to put out there the same that everyone is saying. I don't think there's any way any of us could have been prepared for a sky on fire and the level of how poorly the air was at that moment in time. What I had focused on is preparation, information, and communication. And it does seem that we were not prepared to communicate as effectively and accurately as we could have. But I noticed in the op-ed that information was sent out there. I think that is true. I just want to make clear, as we did, Notify NYC is not the most effective way to put information out there. When the Yankee game happened the day before, we had reached levels of 200. And so they should have been more urgent and effective way to let people know how bad the air quality was at that time. When it is 200, it is dangerous and starting to be dangerous for members of the public, not just those who have underlying conditions. During COVID, we saw press conferences daily that helped us back up our communications. I think had the mayor, commissioner, and others done a press conference sooner and really lifted and dug into how bad the air quality might be, we would have been in better space for people to understand what to do and when the sky caught on fire, even though we may not have been able to prepare for that. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you to the council for having this hearing.
Thank you very much. Other council members here, Councilmember Narcisse, Councilmember Ariola, Councilmember Williams, and on Zoom, Councilmember Holden, Ayala, and Salamanca. And now we'll have swearing in.
Thank you, Chair Brewer. We will now hear testimony from the administration. We will hear from Emergency Management Commissioner Zachary Iskol, DOHMH Deputy Commissioner for Environmental Health Corinne Schiff, and DEP Deputy Commissioner Beth DeFalco. Before we begin, I will administer the affirmation. Panelists, please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. You may begin when ready.
Good morning, members of the City Council. I am Zach Iskol, Commissioner of New York City Emergency Management. And I am here to discuss the air quality impacts to New York City during the first week of June 2023, as well as subsequent air quality events that we expect to continue into the future. I am joined today by New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene Deputy Commissioner for Environmental Health, Corinne Schiff, and DEP, Department of Environmental Protection Commissioner for Public Affairs, Beth DeFalco. Before we delve into the specifics, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the broader environmental challenges that our nation is currently facing and grappling. In the Southwest, an intense heat wave is testing the resilience of communities, while the Northeast is witnessing extreme rainfall events. These conditions are not isolated, but part of the larger climate issues we must face and address. In the midst of these extreme weather events, I want to profoundly express my deepest gratitude to the first responders, public servants, and all of those who are meeting these challenges head on. Their tireless efforts in these trying times exemplify the best of human spirit and determination, and I am so grateful that people like them exist. In the midst of these extreme weather events, now let's move on to our main discussion today about the air quality impacts in New York City and how we can mitigate and adapt to these conditions for the welfare of all New Yorkers and the communities that they are part of. As climate change unfolds in real time, monitoring the air quality index is and will remain part of our new normal. This became jarringly obvious when orange smog from the Canadian wildfires blanketed our city last month. The good news is, if New Yorkers take some simple precautions, we can help prevent or limit the health impacts of these air quality events, but only if we work together. Our city's response to the wildfires serves as a good blueprint for future events. About a week before the air pollution from Canada's wildfires began permeating the 5 boroughs, public messaging about the incoming hazards and guidance for protecting oneself began. Immediately after, hundreds of thousands of masks were distributed to firehouses and police precincts across the city, where they remain available to all New Yorkers today. Hospital visits and EMS response times were closely monitored. Ferry schedules were adjusted. Outdoor events and activities were modified. And we coordinated closely with the Department of Health, Department of Social Services, Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, the Mayor's Office for Immigrant Affairs, the Department for the Aging, and others to ensure the people most at risk, from our elderly to delivery workers and people with special needs, had the information and resources that they needed to stay safe. Throughout it all, essential services like sanitation and transportation were uninterrupted. Forecasting air quality indexes, especially for smoke, is incredibly difficult and complex and is only available less than 24 hours in advance by New York State's Department of Environmental Conservation. The AQI forecast for Tuesday, June 6th and Wednesday, June 7th never placed the AQI in the red or the unhealthy category for the general population. June 7th, the day Mayor Adams held the first of 3 press conferences on the subject, was the only day we saw AQI hit what is considered hazardous levels. Still, with advisories in place for sensitive groups, our team and agency partners began messaging warnings and guidance as far back as June 1st through Notify NYC and other channels. Notify NYC has been providing air quality alerts since 2009 with an AQI threshold for issuance of 100 or higher. With more than 1 million subscribers and availability in 14 languages, including English, Arabic, Bengali, Chinese, French, Haitian Creole, Italian, Korean, Polish, Russian, Spanish, Urdu, Yiddish, and American Sign Language, this is the city's primary emergency notification system. Emergency management is responsible for the development, maintenance, and oversight of dozens of emergency plans, protocols, and playbooks for the City of New York. Emergency plans help prepare the city to respond effectively during an incident in order to reduce disruptions to people and services. NYSEM creates and updates the city's emergency plans for a range of hazards and functional areas that support events such as the recent air quality emergency. Air quality is something we have long monitored and built into our response procedures, but tied to more common causes such as heat-related ozone pollutants. This wildfire was an anomaly for the New York City region, but we had the tools to pull from to stand up and address the response in a time of need. These plans are scalable, flexible, and are made up of a menu of operations and response options. Since no two emergencies will ever be the same, having a menu of options that can be used for a wide variety of incidents and hazards is essential, especially for new to New York City events like wildfire-induced air quality emergencies. For example, a response for a hazard can require multiple plans be used. A coastal storm can trigger over 20 operational documents, such as the Coastal Storm Activation Playbook, the Coastal Storm Sheltering Plan, the Coastal Storm Evacuation Plan, the Logistics Section Plan, the Debris Management Plan, the Interim Flood Protection Measures Playbook, Disaster Assistance Service Center Plan and Manual, and the Citywide Health and Safety Plan, amongst others. A winter weather event can include turning on our Winter Weather Emergency Plan, Flash Flood Emergency Plan, our Power Disruption Plan, our Tow Truck Task Force Protocol, the Advanced Warning System Protocol, or Emergency Public Information Protocol. An earthquake event could require turning on the Advanced Warning System Protocol, the Area Evacuation Plan, the Commodity Distribution Plan, the Debris Management Plan, the Disaster Assistance Service Center Protocol, or the Healthcare Facility Evacuation Plan. No matter the event, we can leverage strategies and tools from our plans to quickly coordinate the response to an event. This includes identifying the key partners for operational coordination, holding interagency calls to provide situational awareness, monitoring and tracking impacts to critical services and infrastructure, identifying key decisions and resources needed to reduce impacts from the event, and tracking key actions to support the response by agency partners. For the air quality event in June, we pulled response operations and capabilities from a wide range of pre-existing plans based on the needs of the emergency at hand. This is similar to what we do during many other extreme weather emergencies, as well as how we operate for any other novel event. For example, during this event, we used the Advanced Warning System Protocol to enhance communication with and outreach to vulnerable populations. We used the Emergency Public Information Protocol to notify the public via Notify NYC and other channels. We use the Citywide Incident Management System to conduct interagency coordination based on specific core competencies of our agency partners. We use the Citywide Health and Safety Plan to coordinate environmental health and monitoring and citywide worker health and safety coordination. We use the Hazard Mitigation Plan Extreme Heat Profile to assess the relevance of historical events and risk factors of air quality. We use the Heat Emergency Plan to coordinate outreach to vulnerable populations, the healthcare system, and homeless populations, as well as coordinate with outdoor events and conduct syndromic surveillance. We use the Logistics Section Plan to source and coordinate the distribution of hundreds of thousands of masks. We use the Winter Weather Plan to discuss school closures. All in all, we issued 11 Notify NYC messages, held 4 press conferences, 3 interagency citywide incident management system calls, distributed over 100,000 masks, and responded to dozens of press inquiries. Ultimately, the best evidence of a successful response comes from public health data, which saw emergency room visits involving breathing complaints just 100 visits above seasonal averages on the day with the worst AQI rating. 100 visits above seasonal averages in a city of more than 8 million people. This is similar to increases we observed in April due to pollen season. While our goal is to keep emergency room visits as close to zero as possible, it is my firm belief that it had not been for our team, our agency partners, City Hall leadership, and the smart precautions taken by millions of New Yorkers, that number would have been far higher, and the impacts to our most vulnerable far worse. After any emergency, our team conducts thorough after-action reviews to improve our response in the future. This crisis was no exception, and we will continue to pivot and shift our response to ensure New Yorkers are best served and protected. That said, I am incredibly proud of our robust response. We continue to coordinate across all agencies to distribute masks, share information with delivery workers and immigrant communities and others about staying safe, provide the best advice to New Yorkers, intensify outreach to unhoused New Yorkers, and much more. This was not a one-time standalone event. The summer is far from over, and more air quality events are likely to come both this year and in the future. As we have seen with other aspects of severe weather, climate change and its impacts continue to pose new challenges to New York City. And our city agencies are working to adjust our plans and outreach to New Yorkers to address this hazard and others. As we did with this incident, We continue to lean forward in messaging to New Yorkers the most up-to-date information of the potential dangers from poor air quality so they can make any adjustments to their activities as needed. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today. We will now take your questions.
Thank you. We've been joined by Councilmember Ressler also. So my first question is, there's a lot of discussion about June 1st, as you indicated, and I'm certainly a NYC member in terms of notifying. I must admit, and this is, I think, true of many New Yorkers, 1 million you said who are members, is that we tend to discard it because we do get a lot of missing persons and other pieces of information, and I have to say I don't pay as much attention to it as I should. So I just want to let you know that I assume that's true of other people. So that's one way to tell people, but it's not always the most effective, just to be honest with you. So I do want to know, in addition, sort of why did your agency wait until June 7th to start drafting a protocol? Because this is my understanding for air quality emergencies, when you did state, and you've done that in the excellent op-ed in the Daily News today, that you said that air quality alerts were sent to New Yorkers beginning on June 1st. And the reason I also want to mention that is I want to understand a little bit more about, because you did mention a lot of reports, and it's hard to, I'm sure, staff-wise, keep up with all the different places that you are keeping information in. But I also understand that DCAS, to their credit, has a guidance for what people should do in these kinds of instances. And it's my understanding that it was sent out, but not all the agencies followed it or knew to follow it. My understanding that Parks did a great job. They alerted particularly survivors of 9/11. And I think one of the reasons this is so important today is those of us who were here on 9/11 are still concerned about air, because we were given, at that point, I'm not saying this is true of the city, but the feds gave us really bad information. And so Parks did a good job. My understanding is the fire department had middle day at the, probably in Councilmember Schulman's district, at the tennis center, but, and people were participating even though the air was of very poor quality. Broadway had closed down. The Department of Transportation had workers on the highways, even though much of the major sports leagues had closed down. So I guess my question is, very specifically, June 1st, exactly what you were telling people, and then it didn't seem to be happening in terms of the information came out very late on June 7th. So how do you reconcile all of this different information? Because that's what we're hearing. Very, I would say, uneven, either information getting out or how it was adhered to. Yeah. That seems to be the problem.
Thank you for your question. So I think part of this is an understanding of the forecast constraints, and part of it is an understanding of what we do at different air quality hazard levels. So the Department of Environmental Conservation, a New York State agency, is the agency tasked with monitoring and doing forecasting for air quality. They have a remarkable team. I don't want this to sound at all like I am throwing them under their bus. Their meteorologists are fantastic. Forecasting air quality is very, very difficult to do, and scientifically is very complex. Each year, we face up to dozens of days where the air quality index is forecasted to go above 100. That's the level that DEC then issues an advisory. When they issue the advisory, there is specific messaging we do. One of them is Notify NYC. At different levels, there's other things we do, and I want to make this clear. Notify NYC is the primary, but not the only messaging system that we use. We have Strengthening Communities programs in place where we tap into local nonprofits and community-based organizations. We do a lot of outreach to electeds and to others. We can hold press conferences. There's a lot, we have social media. We do a lot more than just Notify NYC. But on June 1st, just like we do dozens of times in the past when this has occurred and you have an air quality advisory because of an index over 100, that's the protocol. June 7th was the day that we hit hazardous levels of air. Again, the forecast for June 6th, the day before, was 118. We hit I think that we hit maybe 218 on June 6th, late in the day. The forecast for June 7th was, I think it was, the forecast was 138. Both of those are in the unhealthy for sensitive groups, but not the unhealthy category. And so based on the forecast, we started to amp up some of the work that we were doing, some of the coordination, some of the messaging, but a forecast of 184 on the 6th for the 7th, and then hitting 484, we didn't have a forecast telling us that we were going to hit hazardous levels. And as soon as we did, the day that the mayor held the first press conference was the day that we had the first indicator of hazardous levels of air quality. And so I think that's why, we have to trust the science. We have to trust what we can do within the constraints of the forecasting abilities, and that's what we did in this case.
All right, but how, between the 1st and the 6th, do you know if other locations did a better job, perhaps, of indicating that this was going to be a hazard? It doesn't feel like there was a concise understanding of what was going to happen, because the day it almost happened by the time the information was circulated, the worst.
I mean, again, I would point to the forecast, right? If the forecast is telling you that it's going to be unhealthy for sensitive groups, and you end up in the hazardous levels, we have to go with what the science is telling us, right? I don't know how to tell you what we could do better based on what the forecasts. I can't predict the future other than what the forecast is doing. I think we also have to operate with the understanding that these forecasts are very unreliable, and there's a lot of complexity to them and difficulty. Forecasting any weather event is difficult, but air quality in particular air quality caused by smoke, is notoriously difficult to do. And again, I think how off these forecasts were will point you to that, and that is not at all a slight against the remarkable meteorologists at DEC. It's just where we are with the science of forecasting air pollution.
So on the evening of the 6th, when it was unhealthy and very unhealthy, why not message then? In other words, or the other question would be, how would you do it differently in the future?
Well, I think we started messaging even earlier on the 6th through a number of different channels. And again, the mayor's first press conference was, you're not going to do that at 10 p.m., you're going to do that first thing in the morning, which is when we did, but we were messaging through a whole host of other channels. Okay. But I will say, we should not be knocking Notify NYC either. It is not the only message channel, it is our primary one, and I encourage all New Yorkers to sign up for it.
Okay. It is
one other, just Chair, if I may, the comment about missing persons, I think that's actually a city council mandate that we do the citywide alerts for that.
I know, but what I'm saying, whatever it is very constant and has many different notifications. And so, to be honest with you, I don't think people paid as much attention as you think they should or did. And I don't think that should be your only location of telling people about such challenging air conditions, not to mention other emergencies. Did the governor indicate earlier than the city as to when the air conditions were hazardous?
Well, we rely on her administration's forecasting, so it is their forecast that we use to.
But I think that the
establish
governor
the
actually
trend.
announced earlier than the city when this air was going to be hazardous.
I don't know. I don't have recollection of that, but I'm
Okay.
happy to go back and look.
What is the determination made to send a Notify NYC alert? What would have precipitated that on June 1st or any other day? When did you decide to do that?
Air quality, an AQI forecast of 100 or more.
100 or more, and that's what you would do? That's what you said?
So if DEC issues an air quality advisory, that is the trigger for us issuing a notification.
Okay. And when you talk about the hospitalization being pretty normal, I mean, you said something to the effect of 100, I think?
It was an additional 100, which is on par with what we see during seasonal allergy season in April.
Okay, but doesn't even that didn't trigger more concern than, even though it sounds like it's same thing as pollen or other kinds of challenges, there was no other way in which you could possibly think that that was something that
The
triggered the hospitalization?
hospitalizations are not a leading indicator. They are a trailing indicator.
All right, and then in terms of the individuals who have either asthma or other underlying conditions and so on, those, how were they notified specifically? Was it just to press conferences and notify NYC?
So I think if you look at the chart that you have here, I think you can see
I have
that
a
we
chart.
had a pretty robust communications strategy. Yes, we had the 11 Notify NYC messages. We also had a lot of interagency partners amplifying our messages. So one of the things that we did is interagency calls. And specifically, we invited and made sure that agencies that are responsible for caring for our city's most vulnerable were part of those calls so that they could make sure messaging was passed on to the organizations that they work with and to the people that are part of their communities. Those organizations include the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, Department for the Aging, Mayor's Office for Immigrant Affairs, to make sure that we were getting all of that messaging out to the communities that needed it.
Okay.
In addition, there was in-person outreach that was done. We did do amplified homeless outreach, similar to what we do during a winter weather or during an extreme heat. We also did a lot of interagency calls. We did the press conferences. We did social media.
Okay.
We did press inquiries. And Dr. Vassan and I also did a number of interviews with TV and radio.
How do you explain city workers, as my understanding, I mentioned DOT and FDNY, there are probably others who were working during this time period. Were they messaged in some way? You understand, I mean, each agency is obviously responsible for their own workers, I assume, but that seems to me that there wasn't a lot of communication either through the unions or through city agencies, and that they were out working. How would you explain that?
So I would have to refer you to OLR, but I will tell you that OLR issued pretty robust guidance to all of the agencies. At the levels that were forecasted, it was the appropriate response based on the science, and we trust the science. And so that response was to provide the agencies with guidance, which was provided by OLR. And then the agencies, all of us have different missions. All of us have different abilities to pivot based on the needs of the people who work for us, based on the needs of the people we serve, but would have to refer you to OLR for the specific
Okay, but
guidance.
DOT workers were working in really challenging air quality conditions. Would you handle that differently?
I would have to refer you to DOT, but I think, again, we have to continue to, there are ways of mitigating the effects of air quality to make sure that we are continuing to provide essential services to the city. When you look at some of our counterparts in California, they don't shut down city services until they get to extreme hazardous levels.
We're not California.
Well, I would say even in our levels that we were seeing, I would not shut down essential city services. And I think the guidance that we gave was the right guidance.
Okay.
Again, I think the emergency room visits speak to that. And I think it shows something that our city was able to continue to make sure that the buses were running, transportation was continuing.
No, but
people
I'm talking
could
about
move around the
outdoor
city.
workers, outdoor specifically.
I think a
mean,
lot
we're
of
all-
essential
I just-
services in the city require people working outdoors.
Okay, I have concerns based on 9/11 still always in my head. Masks given out. So obviously you mentioned fire department, police department, neighborhood health centers. Are those the only places that masks were available? And when were they told, when were people told to be able to get masks? The reason I say that is for those of us in elected office, in the past, we were given masks that were appropriate for distribution in terms of high quality. And whatever reason, I don't know how many are in storage, but now we are only given the surgical masks, which were not appropriate for this health concern. Could you describe a little bit more about your mask distribution and why it's just limited to those three places?
So we also distributed masks to immigrant outreach centers with the Mayor's Office for Immigrant Affairs. We also, and I'm not going to get myself into trouble here, Chair Brewer, but we also did offer masks to all borough presidents. Only one of them, I'm not mentioning any names, took us up on the masks. I know Councilmember Schulman received masks from our agency and distributed them to her constituents. And it takes a minute to get hundreds of thousands of masks around the city. They are also now available at public libraries around the city.
All right. And when exactly were they announced as being available based on this particular situation?
I'd have to get back to you on the exact timing of
Okay.
that, and happy to.
All right. And then the other question I just want to ask is, what guidance did, again, back to this additional guidance given to people in the field? What you're telling me is nothing should have changed. They should have continued to have the fire department ceremony, and that the outside DOT workers should have been at work as they are normally. Is that the decision that you think should be made in the future?
I'm telling you that based on the forecasting abilities, we did everything that we should have done in terms of the guidance, the events that took place. When you have those levels, and you're only expecting something in the unhealthy for sensitive groups, yeah, you have to provide information to people and enable them to make their own decisions based on their own specific health needs. Once we reached extreme hazardous levels, that changes things. But that's not where we were on the 6th. That's not where the forecast was until the 7th. And when that happened on the 7th, we immediately kicked into gear to address that. And I wish, and maybe this is something that we could apply more resources to the science of forecasting air quality. There's a lot of complexity to it. There's a lot of difficulty. You even look at the differences between the two recent air quality incidents that we had in the city in early June and then in mid-June. The source of the fires, the wind direction, where that air is coming from, the elevation, the time of day, all of those things change the potential for the AQI levels in the city. And so given those complexities, yeah, I think the city did the right thing on the 6th going into the 7th, and I think we then responded effectively on the 7th as soon as we saw things turn to hazardous levels.
So you wouldn't do anything differently in the future?
Of course, Chairwoman, I will always...
What would you do differently in the future?
So I think there's a number of things, and one is, you never pitch a perfect game. And one of the things we do after every single incident, no matter how small or how large, is we do an after-action report. And our team is currently working on that. And I'm happy to provide that after-action report to you and make sure that it's available to you once we've fully done that assessment.
Councilmember Hanover is also here, and now Councilmember Schulman.
Thank you. And yeah, we look forward to seeing that. And I don't know, I'm sorry, I apologize if I'm asking a question that was asked. The protocol you're putting together, when that's finished, can we have a copy of that as well? The new protocol, because I'm looking forward to that. I do want to say, before I get into some more questions, that I want to thank you and your staff for all the hard work that they did on this. And I know, we're just, as we've all sort of stated, this is now a new normal, so we're going to be moving forward, and we would like to work with you on making sure that New Yorkers are kept healthy and safe. So I have a few questions. One is on Notify NYC, because I have the app and I'm a big fan of Notify NYC. I got an air quality alert, I think it was yesterday, but it doesn't say what the air quality is. Is there a reason for that?
I'd have to look into
Okay, it just says we're giving an alert, but it doesn't say, because I actually downloaded an app, I guess from the federal government it is, or the state, that
the
says,
Air Now, yeah.
yeah, that says what the number is, but it just doesn't say it on that, so I'm like, okay, what should I do? So I just wanted to...
Yeah, so part of it is the advisory is put in place once you're over 100. And again, I think that this changes so drastically minute to minute. The forecast is also, and I don't want to get too deep into the forecast because I'm also not a meteorologist, but the forecast is based on a 24-hour average. It's not point to point. So there is an EPA-run site, a federally run site, airnow.gov, where you can track the air quality in real time. That's actually not a 24-hour average, it's a 3-hour average. But you can also see the differences based on the neighborhood and where you are. And so, I think, one of the things that this incident has just really reinforced for me is just that as we deal with more and more extreme weather events, there is a challenge in ensuring that we are providing and educating the public. And I think this is one of the things that, we really rely on our elected officials for help with this. And I think it's one of the reasons that it's so important that we have these types of hearings. It's one of the reasons that it's so important that we work together, because if we're able to speak with one voice, it's far less confusing to the public. And there's a lot of misinformation out there currently that I appreciate the opportunity to address today, so thank you.
No, I agree. I mean, we want to be helpful. I just made the notice that on the Notify NYC if there's just even a range or just gives a little bit more information. It's just something to look at.
Yep, absolutely.
So now I want to turn my questions to DOHMH, give you a rest, Commissioner.
Appreciate it. You're in
Wow.
good hands.
Wildfires began throughout eastern Canada in May of 2023. The risk posed to New York City by the smoke from these wildfires was first projected by the National Weather Service on May 29, 2023. Following suit, New York State issued an air quality alert for several regions, including New York City. When did DOHMH begin monitoring the air quality affected by the wildfire smoke?
Thanks, Chair. So as you've heard from Commissioner Iscol, it's really the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation that does that monitoring and issues those air quality alerts. I think as you are aware, at the City Health Department, we have an air quality program, the New York City Community Air Survey, which is really a surveillance tool that lets us understand air quality over time in New York City and is a tool for us at the Health Department and for the City Council to develop policies that help New York City improve air quality over time, and the council has actually been really a national leader in that area. But it is the role of New York State DEC to do that monitoring, as Commissioner Iscol has discussed.
Are you working with the New York City Emergency Management on the protocol?
The City Health Department and Emergency Management work very, very closely on a wide variety of emergencies, including this one, to prepare and respond.
Can you explain DOHMH's role in this type of emergency, just for edification?
So our job in public health is to develop public health guidance. That's guidance at a population level. We identify subpopulations that are more vulnerable. All of the chairs in your opening comments, you listed those. And to provide guidance for how New Yorkers can mitigate those risks. Here the risks are very individualized, and that's why we have been providing guidance generally about when we are in these poor air quality days, about limiting time outdoors, limiting strenuous outdoor activities, but also really listening to your body, looking for symptoms in yourself that you are experiencing impacts from air quality, taking those seriously, and going inside.
So I know that Commissioner Iscol said you work with community partners too to inform and educate. Does DOHMH also work with the same partners or different ones, or how does that work?
So we know that community-based organizations, faith-based organizations can be the trusted messengers in communities, and we have very strong partnerships with scores of organizations. I'm sure there is some overlap with emergency management's list as well. We worked with them during this event. We work with them in a variety of urgent areas and in routine matters to make sure that New Yorkers have health guidance that they need.
I'm sure the list is extensive. Is there a way that we could get a copy of the list from both agencies? Because we may be able to add to it as well, so we want to just do it from a spirit of collaboration.
We can check on that, and I would reiterate that we also count on all of you to help us get that word out to your constituents.
What are the short-term and long-term health effects of exposure to wildfire smoke?
So I think that in your opening comments, you articulated those. What we are really concerned about is people with lung conditions, heart conditions, older adults, young children. Wildfire smoke can be a respiratory irritant, and so it can lead to breathing problems. And so people who already come to that exposure with vulnerabilities can experience adverse health impacts. As you heard from the commissioner, what we saw during the event was visits to our emergency departments and urgent care centers, really like what we see in April during pollen season. For people who don't have those conditions, you listed those as well. Irritations to your throat, your nose, your eyes. Some people experienced headaches. For an extent of an exposure like we experienced that first week in June, we don't expect long-term impacts.
So, so are you is DOHMH monitoring any long-term effects of the air quality on New Yorkers, especially vulnerable populations?
The work we do in our air quality program is focused on acute impacts and trying to understand those so that policymakers, including all of you, can continue to improve New York City's air quality. We do make the data available so that those who do that kind of long-term assessments of long-term impact can have that data and use that.
Thank you. I had heard some cities give out air purifiers. Is there any thought to that, or how people can use air purifiers, or even to give guidance on if people want to go out and purchase their own?
We do have guidance, and we did include this in our messaging during that June event about the importance of maintaining your indoor air quality when the outdoor air quality is poor, and there are steps that people can take to preserve their indoor air quality. We will continue to message that so that New Yorkers are prepared.
But any thought to the city giving out air purifiers?
We'll have to get back to you about that.
Okay. Let's see. Does DOHMH plan on creating any additional educational materials or media campaigns around air quality or climate-related emergencies?
So what we did do is we had been issuing guidance throughout the event, and we have now documented that on our website, and we will be pushing that out through the community-based organization partnerships and continuing to educate New Yorkers with this guidance, and we'd be happy to send you a link to those as well.
So, Commissioner Iscol, so this is my last question for this round. I know September is Emergency Preparedness Month. Are you going to institute with the materials that you usually do something about the air quality?
We are now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Gennaro?
Yes, thank you, Chair Brewer. Just getting myself together here. I just had to put in some eye drops. And my first question would be for Commissioner Iscol. In the fourth paragraph of your statement, there is a reference, and reference has been made continually since the hearing began, about the state DEC and the DEC's ability to forecast air conditions. Reading from your statement, forecasting air quality indexes, particularly for smoke, incredibly difficult and complex, and only available less than 24 hours in advance by the New York State DEC. I was a deputy commissioner for that agency for 6 years, and so I know them. I know the commissioner. I used to work for him. Do you find the DEC's ability to forecast bad air quality sufficient given the events of the last month? Maybe they could do a little better or build a more robust capacity to do that? I'm just asking you to offer your opinion on that.
Yeah.
They're not going to get mad at you. It's okay.
I'm not a meteorologist, but I think, we work very, very closely with their forecasting team and with the folks at DEC, especially during this type of emergency. I think given the constraints of the ability to forecast air quality, I think they're doing as well as they can. I would love to see improvements in the technology and our capabilities of air forecasting qualities, but I think based on those constraints, they're doing a fine job.
Okay, let me ask it again. I mean, in a way that kind of probes a little deeper. This is happening. You're talking to the people in your agency. You're talking to other agencies. Was there any discussion during that about, hey, we wish the DEC had a more robust capacity? Did you hear language to that effect? Was that?
I think they wish they had a more robust capacity as well. And I think they would really lean into trying to provide us in the most recent air quality event. They would try and get us information. Generally, they put the forecast out at 3 p.m. for the next day, and then they update it the following morning, sometime between 8 and 10 a.m. They would do their best to try and give us direct updates before those were put out. But I think, like us, they wish they could, do a 48-hour, 72-hour forecast.
Right, okay, and so, thank you for that. I'm just gonna make a little side note to my committee council that we should do some outreach to DEC along the lines of, we live in a new world. You know, what was working in terms of bad air quality forecasting, 5 years ago no longer works, and we'll make an official request to them to show us what capacity they have, and we could advocate for improved and a more robust capacity, within the bounds of science, of course. So we're going to go and do that.
Yes, sir.
And so you're okay with that, right? That makes sense? I want
Sure.
them to do
Yeah.
a better job, okay? And so, and like I said, I have good relations, I have good relationships with that agency, and maybe they need to do, they need a more robust capacity. And now I have some questions for Deputy Commissioner DeFalco from DEP, with whom I am good friends, and as I am with everyone at DEP. And, we got the Plan YC process, which is, separate from what's going on here, but, interrelated, because Plan YC is all about sustainability and resiliency in the face of climate challenges. And if you could expand a little bit on how Plan YC intends to identify and address various manifestations of climate uncertainty, including how that uncertainty could manifest into emergency conditions. Could you speak about that a little bit?
I can. Thank you, Councilman. I think that the chief areas that we are really focused on, and I know that we've given an overview to your committee on Plan YC
Right.
Recently, is how we prevent pollution from starting in New York City, whether that's electrifying our city-owned car fleets, reducing emissions from commercial cookware, or whether, adding a $136 million commitment from this administration to planting more trees, which include air quality. So we've taken a multifaceted approach to ways in which we'd like to both protect and improve New York City's air quality.
Yeah, and we do appreciate that, but perhaps we may be able to sort of, push out the boundaries a little bit of Plan YC to think about external climate emergencies, so to speak, and perhaps their impact on vulnerable communities. I remember when we reinstituted the New York City Panel on Climate Change. It was brought into existence by Mayor Bloomberg to look at city infrastructure. Then it went out of business, and then my committee back in the day brought it back into existence, gave it a broader mandate, to look at the city's economy, impacts on the economy, impacts on vulnerable communities. I think perhaps last month's event could be a teachable moment about how we could push out the boundaries of Plan YC to include and capture how climate emergencies are going to impact the most vulnerable communities. That I think is like a forward-thinking way, because you got OEM, and they deal with emergencies. Bang, it's happening real time. Scramble the jets. Let's do something. But I think I think people looked at Plan YC as kind of like the visionary climate document and roadmap to how we navigate climate uncertainty. And now we've seen it, cross the border and come and hit us, and probably impact vulnerable communities, more than other communities in the city. So what I'm calling for is for, Plan YC and the body that advises Plan YC, on which I sit, to kind of add this as an agenda item for how Plan YC can be a more encompassing planning document and roadmap for, climate emergencies. That's what I think. Do you have something to say about that?
No, I think that we 100% agree that environmental justice communities are impacted far more greatly than other communities by smoke events like this and pollution events like this. They're less able to respond quickly, right? We know environmental justice communities, they're less likely to have air filters, in the home or in the office place, and are more impacted by the air quality of local businesses, and especially those are in industrial areas. So yeah, take what you say wholeheartedly, and we'd love to work with you on that.
Okay, and someone was taking notes, right? So like, we got this, right? Good. And
It's all being recorded, I hope.
what's that?
I think we're all being recorded, so
Yeah,
we'll make sure that
we're definitely being recorded. And so, Madam Chair, as I wanted to be brief with my questioning up front. I reserve the right to come for a second round, but we have other members here that are very eager to get their
Very eager.
their questions in, and I always like to promote their ability to do so. So I'm going to step down for a while. I'm going to be here for the whole day anyway, but I want to hear from some of my colleagues. I want to thank this panel, and you haven't heard the last of me before you step down, but for now, I'm turning it back over to you, Madam
Thank you.
Chair Brewer.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Felice is here. Now we'll hear from Public Advocate Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Much appreciated. And thank you, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioners, for that. I just want to make sure I understand, because based on the testimony, it seems that what you're saying is that given the information and the circumstances as they played out, the city did the best it could. Is that accurate?
100%.
Okay. Which worries me and troubles me a lot, because that means given the same set of circumstances again, you would do the same thing. And that's where my frustration comes in, because I think the administration is the only one that believes everything went the best way that it could. And so I want to walk through a couple of things to understand and make sure we're on the same page, because it's my belief, and I said this before, if the mayor and the commissioners are giving a press conference a couple hours before the sky goes orange because of how bad the air quality is, then we have failed at communicating. And I say that because air quality is not something that is usually talked about in the public. It's something that the public has to learn about and understand. I'm sure we would all agree on that. In that case, we'd have to prime the public so they can understand the information that's coming to them. So if we got information on the 2nd that air quality might be bad, I don't think we did a good job of explaining to the public what that might mean to them. And what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is most of that communication came from Notify NYC, maybe from the 1st or 2nd to the 7th. How would the general population, including the ones that are sensitive, get information about what the air quality was and what that actually means for them?
So first off, Mr. Public Advocate, I appreciate your questions. I appreciate your care and concern. Read with great interest the report that you and your team put out yesterday. Appreciate our ability to talk yesterday. As I mentioned in our call yesterday, I wish that you and your team had actually sat down with us before putting this report out. A lot of the information in it is factually incorrect. A lot of it is stuff that was done and has been done. A lot of it points to existing or what would be redundant capabilities. And I think it's important for us to have these conversations to make sure that all of us are on the same page, because it is confusing for New Yorkers. And it is really important that we are all speaking with one voice so that they have the clear information. As I've said during this hearing, Notify NYC is not the only public messaging system that we have. We do a lot of things through community-based organizations. We do a lot of things on social media. Dr. Vassan and I did a lot of press, both radio and television, and other interviews.
On which days?
I could get you a list of...
No, this is important. This is very important.
Right,
and I wasn't going to bring up the conversation. I'm glad that you did, so I can talk about it. Now it's public. You also said we always don't bat 1,000%. And so that's important to point out as well. I would love to know which press was done from the 2nd to the 7th. I'd like to know which community organizations you reached out to from the 2nd to the 7th to get this information up. I hate that these conversations have to get tense, because we should be looking forward. I think there's a lot of things we agree we can do forward. But this is important because we've been pushing a better way to communicate to the public since COVID, and we don't have it. And we're saying that we communicated to the public the best way we could have from the 2nd to the 7th, and the public would disagree with you because they had no idea that there was a problem until the sky turned orange.
With all due respect, you're missing a key phrase there.
Okay.
The key phrase is, we did the best communicating to the public with the information and the forecast that we had in hand.
And that's just not true.
I
Okay, so wait.
I
There are
completely
other ways to
disagree.
communicate. The mayor himself has said that Twitter is not the best way
You're
to communicate.
saying, Mr. Public
So
Advocate, that you have a better forecasting tool.
Okay,
than
so
what
let's
is
go
available
through
from
the
DEC.
forecasting. What information did you have about the air quality from the 2nd to the 6th?
So I can tell you that the air quality index forecast for June 6 was in the unhealthy for sensitive groups category.
Great.
The air quality forecast for the 7th was also in the unhealthy category for sensitive groups. The exact numbers for the DEC forecast for June 6 was 118. For June 7th, it was
Great.
138.
Let's stop right
June
there.
7th
Got it.
is,
Let's stop
no, but
right there.
I want to make sure I'm addressing your question.
No, I got it. I have
The
enough of
day
my
that
answer.
we had
Thank you.
the
So wait, no, because that is not incorrect. So that is factually incorrect. So one, just so we're clear, if we're saying that public who have sensitivities were in danger, which you're saying at some point they might have been, that was not communicated. And it was not communicated effectively because, as the mayor says, Twitter may not be the best way to do it, and Notify NYC is only reaching 1 million people. You're saying you reached out and could have reached out to TV stations and to CBOs. I don't think that happened. And what I'm saying is, even if we didn't know how high it was going to go, there should have been some priming so that people could know what might possibly happen. Let me just end with this because my time is up. On the app right now, if you go to Air Now app of NYSDEC, it says on the screenshot that I have that the air quality for June 6th was 165, 155, 156. The mayor's statement that came out on June 6th said it was 218, which means it's going into the general population. The Yankee game, it was put out and started at 7 o'clock. That air quality was over 150 as reported by the fan favorite of the administration, New York Times. It went up to over 200 by the time the game ended. CNBC also reported some of this. What I'm saying is...
I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Sure.
You're saying that the air quality reported is not as bad as we're saying it was?
No, I'm saying on June 6th.
Right.
There's reports...
The actual, I just want to make sure I understand this.
Sure.
You're saying the actual, so there's a difference between the forecast
Yeah.
and then observed.
Yes.
Right? The forecast is what we will predict will happen in the future.
I understand the forecast.
Observed is what actually happens.
So there's
You're
two things.
saying the
Wait,
forecast
hold
or
on.
the observed.
What I'm saying, the two
confused.
things. The forecast
Yeah.
was saying there might be problems with air quality. That's one. We don't know how bad that was going to be, so I'm giving you that. What I'm saying is that the forecast, we should have provided more information publicly in public spaces so people could understand what that means. So do more with the information that we had, and we didn't do that. The second part is, as it was happening, as there was actually fog in the sky on June 6th, as the app was saying that the air quality was getting worse, as we were seeing that this was happening, we should have done more with that actually at the time in the first press conference, and the first time that someone was speaking to the press should not have been the following morning making decisions at the time it was happening. Those are things that we should be able to agree on. What frustrates me is those are simple things. And I want to give you to the fact that we could not have predicted an orange sky. We couldn't have predicted how it's gotten. We couldn't do more with information that we have. I'm using all the information that you had and all the information that we have, and I'm simply saying we should have done more with it, and we didn't.
Sure, with 2020 hindsight, of course we should have done more.
I'm talking about
But
hindsight.
I think with the information that we had at the time, the mayor's press conference occurred on the first day we had hazardous air quality.
No, the first day was
that we-
218 by the mayor's statement.
218 is not hazardous air quality.
At 218, wait, I
is
just want to read
unhealthy.
this. When the air quality is 150 to 200,
is unhealthy
some
for
members of the
sensitive
general
groups.
public may experience health effects. 201 to 300, health alert. The risk of health effects is increased for everyone.
And if you look at what that actually says in terms of the categories, 150 to 200 is unhealthy for sensitive groups. Above 200 is when you get to unhealthy for the general population.
218.
Excuse me. Above 300 is when you start to get to hazardous levels of
I
air quality.
understand that.
And
but,
again, I
and I'm
would
going to end
point
this, and I'll get back to the chair. But what I'm saying is this. We have to prime the public for information that they have never received. And so this information is confusing. If we're starting to give this information right before the sky turns orange and on fire, I'm just saying we took too long. That should not be a statement that is somehow controversial. And that's what frustrates me with the administration. There's never an admission of the simplest things that we could have done, and it makes our conversations tenser unnecessarily. And this is not criticism to the mayor or the administration for criticism's sake. As he said, this is literally my job.
Right. I think one of the things that I look at is, and I couldn't agree with you more in terms of priming New Yorkers. I agree with you 100% on that. This was something that had never happened before in New York City. One of the things that we are doing now is robust communications to start educating New Yorkers. We do this about heat. We do this about extreme rainfall events. And now we're doing this about air quality, things like this, so that we are priming that ahead of it. But to think that we could do that on the 6th with the forecast that we had
You could not have. You could not have.
We could not have. And I want to be
Agreed.
clear about that. But
So
I
we're
agree
clear on
100%
that. But I'm
with you.
talking about the information that we had. And so we're using the excuse of the information we didn't have. And I'm talking about the information that we actually had on the 2nd through the 6th, what we could have done more of, and how effective we could have gotten it to the people that needed it. That's all I'm talking about. And so we're hiding behind the fact of the information that we didn't.
Nobody is hiding behind anything here.
Okay, I appreciate the time that I've had. Thank you so much. I definitely look forward to more of our conversations.
Thank you.
I do too, and I do look forward to sitting down and talking about your report. I do really wish your team had sat down before issuing this with my team.
Yes.
Okay.
As I said, the
Thank
administration
you.
doesn't admit
Inconsistencies
when
and
something went wrong,
misinformation.
Thank
so
you.
that makes it more
Thank you.
difficult.
Thank you. Councilmember Arola.
Thank you, chairs. Thank you all for coming today. So maybe I'm unique in that we were watching for tweets on Notify NYC, so we were aware when you first started to send them out, so thank you for that. We were then contacted by the mayor's office, NISM, the City Council, Emergency Services. We had ample information regarding what was and what could be coming. So what I say is, if you're paying attention to what Notify NYC is putting out, and you're paying attention to the emails that are being sent to you from all the different agencies, including the administration and our city council office, then you would have known, and you would have started posting on Facebook and all your social media, or reaching out to your constituents. So in that area, I disagree. I think that this was something that came upon us, and the city reacted, and you reacted well, and you did your outreach. NISM, DOHMH will get to you. So Commissioner Iscol, last month's air quality issues was novel for NYC. What protocols and procedures does NISM have in place to address new issues that arise in real time, and how did you employ these during the week of June 6th?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. So I think one of the things is to really talk a little bit about all hazard planning. You know, in emergency management, we're always going to have to deal with things that are novel and new, right? We cannot predict the future. And so we have a construct with the way that we do planning where we have essentially plans that enable us to, let me give some examples. So example, if you look at like our coastal storm plan, for example, that's comprised of maybe 2.5 dozen different plans. Our advanced warning system, our bridge and tunnel closure protocol, our disaster cost recovery plan, our disaster assistance service center plan, our language access protocol, our logistics center plan, our debris management plan. All of our plans are made up of a whole host of other plans. So what we're able to do is we can look at the impacts, and then from there, we can then activate different plans to do that. And that's what we did during this event, whether it came to health concerns, educating the public, distributing masks around the city, the commodity distribution plan and logistics plan. Those are the protocols that were in place. Now one of the things that we're doing is codifying some of the lessons from the actions we took and codifying into what's called an actual air quality protocol that is currently in development.
That's great. And honestly, our office is one of the offices that was contacted for masks, and I want to thank you for that. And it is only natural to use first responders for locations for people to pick up masks, and that's why I think that was what was chosen first, and then it went to other locations like public libraries. So my second question is, while none have been as bad as this week, you know, the week of June 6th, what we're discussing today. We have had some days of poor air quality in the past few weeks. What strategies did NICEM employ to notify the public and work with all city agencies on appropriate actions?
Yeah, thank you. So number one is, again, Notify NYC. I know a lot of folks are bashing in Notify NYC during this panel, but it is our primary messaging system, over 1 million subscribers, 14 languages. It's what we used during COVID. It's what we use during emergencies to get information out there. We use social media. We use radio, television, and TV ads. I think we also have community-based organizations that we work. And again, one of the things that we did during this event is, and I can't emphasize this enough, we brought in partner agencies that are generally not at the table for emergencies because they're not the operational agencies, like Mayor's Office for Immigrant Affairs, like Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, like Department for the Aging, and others, to make sure that they had the right information from the scientists, from the doctors, from Dr. Katz, from Dr. Vassan, from the DEP commissioner, and making sure that we were providing them the right guidance so that they could get that out to the organizations that they work alongside, to the people that they sort of were responsible for caring for, to also make sure that we're hitting it through those channels as well.
Thank you. Now, for DOHMH, what was the type of outreach that you did? Because we didn't receive any from DOHMH.
So the health department complemented the outreach from emergency management. We were tweeting in English and Spanish. We were using our networks I described earlier of community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, to get messages to them so that they could communicate to their constituents. Our commissioner did a lot of press, which is a really important way to communicate with New Yorkers. So I think those would be the primary ways that we communicated.
And do you believe that DOHMH's response was adequate in this air quality emergency? And what do you think could have been done better?
Well, I think you've heard from Commissioner Iscol about all of the ways that the city responded. The health department was there to provide the public health guidance as the city responded. We were looking, I think there was a question earlier, we were looking to the guidance that's issued out on the West Coast to the more experienced jurisdictions to make sure that the guidance that we were issuing was aligned with what they tell their residents, and it was. So I am really proud of the work that we did in a very, very rapid way to put out guidance to New Yorkers for limiting their time outdoors, limiting strenuous activity outdoors, ways to protect indoor air quality.
And will you be putting, thank you, and will you be putting anything out saying that, I have respiratory issues, so, of course, then I went to see my pulmonologist afterwards because my breathing quality, and I only have asthma, so it's not anything, anything that's COPD or emphysema or anything like that, which are much worse. But do you have any idea what the impact will be on people with respiratory diseases that now that we have inhaled, that type of smoke?
So we're really concerned about acute experiences when we have that kind of exposure. For the length of time that we had this very poor air quality, we are not really concerned about long-term impacts. I can say another area of outreach, since you mentioned your healthcare provider, is we have a vast communication network with healthcare providers, and we communicated with them as well so that they would know what they might be seeing, hearing from their patients, and how they could help their patients.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Yeager's here, and now we're going to hear from Councilmember Nurse.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question about masks, and going through this experience just kind of made me a little bit anxious about the fact that the last 3 years we were relying on this piece of equipment to really keep people safe, and so I'm just wondering if you can discuss what are the current stockpile levels that you work to keep. And can you discuss the process and protocol for rapid deployment and any lessons you've learned from that? Where are they stored? What are the triggers to move them? Where do you stage them for an anticipated or very likely need to distribute them?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So We have a lot of masks located in a lot of different locations. So we have some at our warehouse in Brooklyn. We have another warehouse where we have most of our coastal storm sheltering equipment and supplies in New Jersey. We have DCAS at their warehouse. They have a lot of masks. FDNY, NYPD, they also have masks. And this specific incident, essentially what it was finding out where do we have of all the different stockpiles of masks. And I can get you sort of more of the specific numbers of different mask stockpiles around the city and outside the city. But what was going to be the fastest way of getting masks to the public? And what we determined was it was going to be at NYPD precincts and FDNY firehouses. And we relied on a stockpile of, I think, 25 or 50,000 masks that we had at our warehouse. And the numbers, and I think it was maybe 125,000 masks at a DCAS warehouse, that those were going to be the easiest ways. DEP, actually, I think DEP might have also participated in providing masks in that distribution.
What is your current stockpile number goal that you try to keep at all times?
I don't have that off time plan, but I can get it for you.
Okay.
And it would vary also, I'm sorry, by agency, not just by the city.
So each agency is responsible for their own determination of a stockpile.
There's sort of stockpiles for city agencies. There's stockpiles also for New Yorkers and for these types of events. And so there's both for city workers and for New Yorkers. But I could try and
who would give the ultimate authority over what the city should have in total?
So there are
where would that guidance come from?
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that. I mean, there are. Do you have guidance on that from Department of Health in terms of masks? No. No, I mean, there's city policies. I'd have to go back to my team and find out if there are certain federal or state requirements for masks as well.
Okay. Can you, I'm not trying to reopen the exchange with a public advocate. However, I am curious in terms of walking back from the prep, like priming people internally, not even to the public, priming agencies. So if you know you're gonna, at a hazardous level, you're gonna close schools, at what point on this scale do you start to communicate to DOE and different agencies, start making preparations for a potential closure, start making preparations for staff to work remotely? Where in this do you start that trigger process?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I'm going to defer this to Department of Health, who can talk about this, but I just want to ground this in, like, I can't emphasize this enough. Because we're doing a lot of work now looking at different triggers.
Yeah.
And I think just the imprecision and the poor reliability of the forecasts, the length of time that you might have, hazardous levels of air, but it might be for 30 minutes or an hour.
No, I feel like
but with all that aside,
laid out the unpredictability and unreliability, and we empathize and sympathize with the decisions that need to be made rapidly with unpredictable technology. However, the point that was being made was, we are seeing the wildfires continue. They weren't contracting, they were expanding, they were sustained. So you knew that the northern part of New York State was experiencing this. So at what point in the threshold, even if you don't have a protocol, are you starting to communicate with agencies like, this might be a situation where we need to close schools and have people working remotely? Like, there comes some point where those kinds of questions start to get communicated.
So I'll say two things. One, there was, during the event, the health department was offering that guidance. You heard the commissioner describe multi-agency calls, and that was exactly the sort of guidance that we were providing on those calls. And the guidance continued to be to limit outdoor time and limit strenuous activity outdoors. We've now documented that guidance, and it is on our website, including guidance for schools, for New York City public schools and for all of the independent schools that also look to the health department for that guidance. I do want to comment that I think we all have a much deeper appreciation now about the harms and the challenges of remote learning. And so we don't have an absolute trigger when there would be remote school, but rather when the air quality is very, very hazardous at that highest level, that's the soonest point that we start to say to school leaders, start to think about the balance of those risks, but it's not an absolute, there's no absolute trigger because there's a lot of different factors that go into that, including what's forecasted. You heard the commissioner say it could be that we're going to see very, very poor air quality, but for a short time. So that might mean recess is going to be different. Recess will come inside, just like we see during extreme weather. So these are very difficult decisions, and we have now documented the comments, the guidance that we made during the event. We've now documented that so that we can, now that we know that this may happen again, we can be more forward thinking. And again, we'd be happy to share the links to that it's on our website.
When did, I'm just going off of our committee council reports, so they might not have as much information as you have, but when was the first interagency call conducted where you were starting to have those kinds of conversations about possibilities?
I would have to get back to you. I think it might have been, I'd have to get back to you. I think it might have been on, it was probably on the 6th, but I'd have to get back to you on the, well, let me get back to you with the exact date.
Okay.
It could have been earlier than that. It could have been later than that.
Okay,
But
I'm just going off
yep.
the flyer that was given to us.
Yep.
Stating 3 interagency calls. The last question I have was maybe DEP related, or maybe DOH. We've had a number of hearings where Councilmember Alexa Aviles has talked about the air monitoring system, the NYCCAS. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that acronym. And in our report, it says that you're able to monitor in real-time particulate matter, but it doesn't list Brooklyn as having a site. And then we saw also in the report that Brooklyn had the highest levels of folks coming to the hospital related to asthma incidents on that day. So I'm just wondering, from a longer ability to respond, do you think it's time, one, I want to clarify if you have a site in Brooklyn, and if not, do you think it's time to put a monitoring station in Brooklyn?
So let me clarify. The New York City Community Air Survey, NICAS, there are 2 components to it.
Right.
Neither is able to be an emergency alert system. For an emergency alert system, we rely on DEC, and we also all look now to Air Now.
Yes.
The real-time monitors, I'm going to have to get back to you about the location. It's not meant to be an emergency alert system. There are 9 monitors. They measure PM 2.5 only, which is not adequate to tell us about air quality, the air quality index overall. So it's not intended, and it's not designed, and it cannot be for these purposes. But I'll get back to you about...
I understand that they are monitoring over time trends in equity around air quality, so where there's disparities in the city around air quality. But what I'm saying is that as a piece of infrastructure, even though it's not for rapid response, it can tell us things. It seems that given the health impact that happened that day, it would be important to have a monitoring facility in Brooklyn. And according to the council's report, which maybe is not fully developed, I think we have great researchers here. There just isn't one in Brooklyn, and so I'm just suggesting and recommending, based on both the advocacy that's happened in these hearings, that one be put in Brooklyn, considering there's some clear health disparities here.
So I'm going to get back to you with the details, but I will say that, as I noted, there are 2 pieces to NICAS. One is this real-time monitor, which I think is what you're referencing, and the other is our more extensive network, which is how we look to air quality over time. I believe that the details are in the report that we submit to council, but let me get back to you to make sure that I'm answering your precise question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Krishnan is here, and now we're going to hear from Councilmember Narcisse.
Hi. Thank you, Chairs. On the conversation here, I was listening. For when Councilmember Brewer, Chair Brewer, asked the question, would you have done anything different? You said no. You would not do anything different. But when Jumaane spoke, you said if you had 20/20 hindsight, you would have done differently. So which one that you feel like you had done everything, or you're not so sure?
So I think within the constraints of the forecast and the information we had, I'm very proud of the city's response. I think one of the things I did make clear, and I will reiterate this in my exchange with the public advocate, is, and I said this earlier in my testimony as well, we can never do enough to make sure we're educating New Yorkers so that they have the information they need to deal with extreme weather events, whether it's heat, whether it's air pollution, whether it's rainfall, whether it's coastal storms. And, we need to get ahead of that. There's always more we can be doing there. But given this was an unprecedented event, this is the first time this had ever happened, I don't fault us for not having done that before we knew what we were going to be dealing with.
What I realized, we did not get, did we get an alert on our phone? Like, it's very practical if something happening at the time, because everyone have a phone. So can you consider that? Because I did not recall that I got one. If
So
anybody got
we
one,
have a number of notification systems in the city that we use for emergency alerts. One of them is, I think what you're referring to is wireless emergency alerts. That's like the Amber Alert. You get them from the National Weather Service for flash floods, for tornadoes. A wireless emergency alert, the governor said that she would issue a wireless emergency alert in New York State if we went above 200 at the most recent event. I think in New York
but we
City.
went over 200.
So she said that for the second weather event, air pollution event we had in June, not the first one. I think that there's a conversation here about, in many jurisdiction, municipalities, and places in like upstate New York, the wireless emergency alerts are the only mechanism they have for getting information out to people. I think for us in New York City, we have a lot of tools at our disposal to make sure we're getting information to New Yorkers. And that a wireless emergency alert really should only be used for incidents that are imminent threats to life and safety, right? And that's where we've really used them in the past, where you want somebody to take a specific action, like sheltering in place or something like that.
I got that. The reason I'm asking all this question, because the most vulnerable that we talk about that we're supposed to protect in New York City are the ones that always end up suffering. So if we can find a way to understand our responsibility for those population that's most vulnerable, we're talking of asthma. As a nurse over 3 decades working in the ER, I understand we cannot control things, nature, especially when it's climate change, but as our responsibility is to make sure those the vulnerable are alert and have the message in the time that they're supposed to receive it. In the ER, like Sandy Nurse Council member just mentioned, and one of the things that I realized in the Black, brown communities that we serve, so far I will say, if I may quote, according to DOH MH data, zip codes with the highest asthma-related ER visits during the June 6th and in general, house immigrants and Black and brown populations. So far, what outreach have you done to those populations?
Yeah.
That's your question.
For me,
That's a question. No, for DOH.
DOH.
Thank you. Yeah, we know, we agree. We know that there are neighborhoods in New York City where the asthma burden is higher, and the health department does a lot of work to address asthma in a variety of ways, focused in those neighborhoods. And as we all come to learn more and more about air quality and the importance of monitoring air quality and taking steps based on our own individual circumstances when the air quality changes, we will add that to the outreach that we do in those neighborhoods.
And thank you. And I'm very much interested in the mask supplies, because what happened during COVID, I think we should have learned, and we should have that data and the guideline on hand when we ask questions on that, because this is very important. And when you're talking about the masks, I got my first group of masks given to me by the governor's office. So in the meanwhile, I did not even think about it twice because they called me first. So I think that if you can work on that for the collaboration, you have 51 council members, and they all each serve their district, and that's the fastest way that we know the population, the inlet where we have to get supplies right away in a timely fashion. So thank you for your time, and thank you, Chair, for the time. Thank you.
Councilmember Ressler?
Thank you to Chairs Brewer and Schulman and Gennaro for convening us today. Very much appreciate your leadership, and thank you to Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner Schiff and Falco. Appreciate you guys being here as well. When there is a snowstorm or a hurricane or a heat wave coming, as emergency preparedness professionals, we prepare for the worst. That did not happen here. The administration failed to prepare New Yorkers for this potentially extreme incident. And considering 1 in 10 New Yorkers have chronic respiratory conditions, we failed them. The city of New York failed people who were at risk. The revisionist history that was written in the Daily News this morning and has been repeated again this morning is jarring. It's jarring. It is disconnected from the reality that 8.4 million New Yorkers experienced during this extreme weather incident. I'm disappointed that the administration is not taking responsibility for its failures, but I'm even more disappointed that the administration failed to respond after the crisis came over the city of New York. The failure to respond nimbly, aggressively, to actually protect people is totally unacceptable. So I want to focus my questions on that failure of response today. While this was, as you've noted, an unprecedented incident for New York City, many cities around the country have had similar extreme weather incidents with terrible air quality in the very recent past. And we know their playbook for how to respond. We didn't do any of those things, but we know what we could have done and what we should have done to keep New Yorkers safe. So firstly, I'd like to ask about clean air centers. Why was the decision made not to open clean air centers when in many of our homes there was terrible air quality and there was no safe place for people to go to get away from the horrible conditions that people were facing?
So in terms of clean air centers, it's a good question. And I think there's a difference between the reality of what they deal with in some places where they have clean air centers, like California, and some municipalities that choose to do it, others don't, and where we are here. For one, many of the clean air centers in California are also fire shelters, right? Because people are in danger not just from air pollution, but also from fires because of their proximity to the fires. There's also issues around transportation. People in New York City rely on public transportation, on walking. The safest place for people to be in New York City during an event like this is inside and in their home. When we think about, and there's often a comparison between clean air centers and things like cooling centers that we do during heat events, they're two very different things, and it's based on the science of what you need to be concerned about based on the health impacts of that type of event. So we know during winter weather, for example, when we send out Code Blue teams, right, we have warming buses that are out and about to make sure that we are getting people warm, because we know even just a few hours of warmer temperatures is healthy. We know that also for people that with cooling centers,
I just want to be mindful of the time, and so I'm sorry, but I have to say, people can put on a mask, and especially for folks in NYCHA developments where we have terrible air quality, and oftentimes problematic outdoor air gets into people's apartments even when the windows are closed, it's really important for there to be a safe place to go. Opening up the network of centers that are traditionally cooling centers and operating them as clean air centers, getting air purifiers out to them, would have been a rapid, effective response to better keep New Yorkers safe.
We disagree. We think it would actually be putting New Yorkers in danger by having them go outside of their homes into
wearing an N95 mask, walking a couple blocks, or getting on a subway stop, or taking a bus a couple blocks to get to a safe place to go when they are currently in unsafe conditions. That seems odd.
I would not want to put people into unsafe conditions outside, is the point.
A brief period of time outside when they're in unsafe conditions in their current setting. And we will trust the science and the doctors and the medical experts on this. But I respect your opinion. It's not what other cities do around the country in similar circumstances. I'm surprised that when we've seen wildfires across California, they set up clean air centers for people to go. This was a safe mechanism that was done repeatedly. We don't have that. We didn't do that here. Secondly, it's the failure to call a code red. We have, according to the HOPE survey that was, the HOPE count that was completed last week, significant increases in the number of street homeless individuals. Those people have no place to go. They were breathing in the toxic air minute after minute, hour after hour, getting sick. These are people who have chronic health conditions, as Deputy Commissioner Schiff knows well. And yet we did nothing for them. There was some additional outreach, but there was no code red issued, so they could not enter any homeless shelter in the city of New York to get the assistance they needed because we failed to act. Why was a code red not called?
So a code red, so first off, I agree. The most important thing during an event like this is taking care of our city's most vulnerable, and we did that. Especially,
I disagree.
You're happy to have you disagree, but we had Department of Social Service outreach teams, as they would during a code red, going out, encouraging homeless New Yorkers to get off the streets into shelters, providing masks. The difference is that a code red, like a code blue, are used for different types of emergencies. A code red is specifically for heat-related emergencies.
Yes.
They're doing things like getting them into a cooling bus. They're doing things like handing out sunscreen. They're doing things like looking for signs of hydration.
Of course, there are
Right? The
particular elements to
protocol,
a code
excuse
red.
me, the protocol is very different from a code red, or we also didn't execute a code blue, which is what we would do during a winter emergency because the risks to homeless individuals were not cold weather, just as it was not heat. It was air pollution.
The risk
and
was
so
being
our
outside.
DSS teams, yes, and that's why we had DSS teams doing additional outreach, going to places with poor air, distributing
The most
masks,
important
and
element of a
encouraging
code
New
red
Yorkers
or
to
a
come
code
in.
blue policy is that any street homeless New Yorker can walk into any shelter in the city of New York and immediately get shelter. They can get a bed in any place, anywhere they go, in the many hundreds of facilities around the city. Why did we not implement that policy during this toxic air emergency?
That was implemented, just not as a code red
It's
or a
not.
code blue, because a code red or code blue, there are very specific protocols
At
for
the June
heat
7th press
and for
conference
winter
that you
weather.
held with the mayor after this onset of the emergency had occurred, the issue of homelessness and homeless New Yorkers was not mentioned once. Never during this time period was it ever said that in the additional outreach that was being done to street homeless New Yorkers, that they could be told they could enter any homeless shelter
As I
in the
said,
city of New York. That has
the
never been
teams,
communicated.
The additional outreach was being done. We were handing out masks. We were encouraging them to go into shelter.
Encouraging people
but
to
we
go into
were
shelter
not doing
at
the same
30th
thing
Street
we would do
intake. So
during
somebody
heat.
who's homeless on the streets in the Bronx
All
is
right,
told,
come on,
hey,
come
you can
on.
go to 30th Street to enter into a shelter system. We failed street homeless New Yorkers in this incident, and I hope moving forward we develop the right and necessary protocols so that we can ensure they can access shelter in their immediate vicinity to get to safety. Thank you.
I 100% agree with the value of your question, but I think we need to just accept that a code red or a code blue are different protocols for different types of emergencies.
I think I made clear the crux of what was needed was to ensure that
And that
people
was
could
done.
enter shelter.
With all due respect, that was done.
It has never been communicated to this date. It was not communicated during the emergency. In the response from the mayor's office at the time, there was no mention of homelessness in the press conference, the first press conference that you held. This was not prioritized. These folks were ignored, and I'm
Okay.
deeply disappointed.
We did additional
Thank you.
outreach 24/7.
All right.
But thank you for your
both.
question.
Councilmember, do you have more questions? I don't want to cut you off. Do you have something else?
That's fine. I'm fine.
Okay. Councilmember Hanif.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Commissioner
Thank you,
Iscall. I'll
Councilmember. How
dive
are
right
you?
in. What guidance was specifically offered to families and residents at the HERCs, the respite centers, the emergency shelters, and the shelter system more broadly?
So I can't speak to the shelter system. I would have to refer you to DSS and DHS. In terms of the respite centers that we're running, it was the same guidance that we were providing to all New Yorkers. We made sure that we did that through language access, and we also made masks available.
Could you share what through language access was available?
I'm sure. I'm happy to.
Flyers, pamphlets?
I'm happy to get that information for you. Yeah.
You can't share anything
I
on
don't
the
recall
record
it off
about,
the
because
top
I
of my
know
head,
that the council had reached out to you shortly after our clouds were, the sky was orange and fire, to understand how asylum seekers were receiving this information, and it seemed that your response was unclear. It was not a response. You sort of ignored the question. So I'd like to know what, after this, we would be receiving if.
100%. I will talk to my team and make sure we get that information for you.
And I'm also just curious, I know you mentioned and emphasized the interagency conversations. Why are you unable to talk about what the plan entailed for DHS, DSS?
Because they have their protocols, and I would defer to them to talk about what was actually done in the shelters at the tactical level.
So just to be clear, right now you're unable to share exactly what the outreach
You asked me for
mechanism was.
specifically the information that DSS provided at each of the shelters. I know that additional information was provided. Exactly what it is, I don't have in front of me, and I want to make sure you're getting the most factual and accurate information.
I appreciate receiving the factual information, but it is disheartening to know that you can't share what kind of information was shared or what the outreach entailed.
Again, I'm happy to make sure that you ask DSS and DHS to provide that information of how they did it.
And then on unhoused New Yorkers, could you walk us through what the outreach was?
So it was 24/7. It was additional outreach. I could get the cadence and the time. I don't have those exact metrics in front of me about the amount. Generally, what they do during a code red or a code blue is, in addition to the weather-specific information that's provided, things like a warming bus or things like sunscreen, they also go to different locations, right? There are locations that more of a concern during heat versus more of a concern during cold weather. But I could get, circle back with information on the cadence and the time and the locations of where they were doing that outreach. I don't have that in front of me.
That would be helpful, and also just what the cadence will look like in future incidences to ensure that unhoused New Yorkers are being escorted and not being told to jump in the
100%. And this is a priority of ours, and it's why we did 24/7 outreach. It's why we did mass distribution. It's why we did the enhanced outreach teams during this event, because we care about this.
Great. And now I want to focus on worker safety, and Chair Brewer had raised this question earlier. Did, in these interagency calls, protecting municipal workers come up? And I know you mentioned that OLR provided guidance, agencies have different missions. What was the overall protocol that the city sent out for municipal workers and their ability to work from home?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked this question, because I wanted to circle back to Chair Brewer's question and just sort of, we did specific calls with the experts, with the medical experts and with OLR and with commissioners and the agencies, specifically around making sure that we were caring for the health of the city workforce. That guidance was provided to OLR. OLR provided their guidance to different agencies. But I just wanted to reiterate that the health of our workforce is of paramount importance, and that's one of the reasons that we had those conversations. And in terms of some of the guidance that Department of Health provided during those conversations, do you want to talk about some of it?
Sure. The guidance for workers, including for city workers, parallels the guidance for individuals. So when the air quality is very, very poor, the recommendation is to limit time outside and to limit strenuous activity outside. So for office workers, they're already indoors, so that's not a major concern. For city workforce that works outside, especially for our essential workers, there are ways to mitigate some of those risks. So to encourage breaks, to provide workers with high quality masks. And those are the kinds of recommendations that we provide to our sister agencies, which then have the responsibility to take that guidance and figure out how it applies to their workers, considering the kinds of work that they do.
Chair Brewer, I have a few more questions that I want to wrap up on this topic. Did the city implement work from home protocols for appropriate municipal workers? Was there a memo sent out to the?
It was, I would again defer to OLR, but it was at the commissioner's discretion based on agency requirements, personnel needs. But we're happy to have asked OLR to provide you the guidance that was given.
So then at your agencies, was there a memo sent out around what protections workers needing to come to the office had versus field workers?
Was there guidance provided?
Yeah, like was there a memo sent? I know Google, for example.
Yes, we
had sent out a
provided
memo.
guidance to our workforce.
And would you be able to share if there were workers who requested to work from home? Like, was there any kind of
Happy to get you that information.
And then did the city encourage private employers to implement work from home protocols for workers who were able to? Is that also an OLR?
I would, I am not sure about the communication to private employers. I know that there was some conversations, but would have to refer you to City Hall on that one.
Okay. I'm just raising this because I live with an autoimmune disease, and the issue of reducing unnecessary exposure to adverse environmental conditions is naturally very important to me, and particularly through what we've seen during COVID and the sort of revival of the movement to work from home and create different mechanisms to ensure the safety first and foremost for our city's workers. And workers, from delivery workers to workers who are running this city, all of our agencies, our staff included. And when the extent of the negative air quality became clear last month, without having any guidance myself, I immediately said, I'm going to be working from home, and I need my staff to work from home too, just to ensure that we are keeping ourselves safe. So I recognize all the ways in which we are sharing out information, but this is a larger conversation about the health of workers for the long haul of this city's well-being, and for us to be able to do our work, whether it's outdoors, indoors. And I know some companies are utilizing sensors around air quality monitoring, and those are going to need to be some technologies that the city needs to research and bring on as we continue to build a more resilient city and adapt to these climate change, these impacts of climate change. So want us to really focus on ensuring that we are prioritizing workers first and foremost.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to add that at DEP, and I don't know what the case is with other agencies, we actually did robocalls for our entire workforce. So much so that I started to think it might have been a telemarketer who was calling repeatedly during the days. But we did that in addition to emails and having supervisors talk to people directly, because we have a emergency response, critical employees that have to stay on the job, as well as those who can work remotely.
That's good to know, because it seems like it differs from agency to agency based on some
That's what I was
OLR.
going to say. Do we know if other agencies did that? Because I have to say, I'm getting different impressions about different agencies as to how they communicated. And your workers at DEP often do work outside, maybe different than DSS. Do we know, Commissioner, did different?
This is one of the reasons that the OLR guidance was specifically for commissioners to have some discretion, because, look, different agencies have different, do different things, right? We have different workforces.
Oh, I understand.
And then I think at the same time, we also wanted to make sure commissioners had the ability to take care of the most vulnerable amongst our workforce and make exceptions or be supportive of their needs during this time.
Okay, I just think, again, looking hindsight in the future, maybe even more specific guidance if we're having an outdoor fire ceremony, if people are working in the streets at DOT, I don't know if they got the information. So yes, you might think that, I just think they need more guidance. I would say that for your debriefing. Councilmember Gutierrez, welcome, and go ahead with your questions.
Thank you so much, chairs, and good to see you all. My questions will be short because I think my colleagues have done a really good job at, elevating what our concerns were on the ground, and knowing full and well that this is something that was new and that we needed to remain flexible. I think I'll be honest and say I got my information from the news like everyone else, I think before there was any City Hall press conference. My question is particularly to the impact on already existing environmental justice communities like mine in North Brooklyn, for example. I know in the days after June 6th, which I believe was that was the peak day, June 6th, June 7th?
June 7th.
June 7th, excuse me. So in the days after, I know that the quality index in some areas of the manufacturing area was also very scary. I don't know if it would be classified code red or whatever, but I'm just concerned about what is the plan moving forward for communities that are already impacted by existing poor air quality. In my district, in the South Side, the playgrounds, of course, we wanted to limit outdoor activity, sit on top of the BQE. We have significant manufacturing where people now live and also work. And so the quality index was really, really poor. And I would just like to know, knowing what we've learned since the beginning of June, what is the plan for outreach in existing EJ communities, and specifically in these areas like myself and Councilmember Aviles' district, where it's highly manufacturing, where the quality just tends to stay poor for a lot longer. What is the plan, specifically in the context of these wildfires that we're expecting to go on for a while, unfortunately?
Well, I'll say first at the health department and our sister agencies that we share your concerns and your interest, and we know that these burdens are not distributed equally throughout the city. And we, as we were, all of our agencies, and including the health department, messaging especially to communities that are disproportionately burdened by air quality and conditions like asthma, we were doing outreach to those communities, and we're going to continue to do that. We've now documented the recommendations that we were making during the event. On our website, we'll be sharing that. We were working with community-based organizations, faith-based organizations at the time, and we will continue with our community outreach to get that information out to those communities so that people can be aware and prepared, because we may continue to experience.
When you say outreach, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I only have a few minutes. When you say outreach, though, what is it? Emails, flyers? What does that look like?
So we share information with community-based organizations as the trusted messengers in those communities. We have information at our neighborhood action centers, and we have our own community outreach workers who are out speaking with New Yorkers. And we use all of those methods, including also sharing the information with your office and with the office of your colleagues, so that you can help us to continue to educate New Yorkers about the steps they can take when the air quality is poor.
And what's the, so I would, and maybe this is more specific for those agencies, but Woodhull has some of the highest admission rates for asthma-related incidents independent from this. So we're just really curious to see kind of how they were able to integrate this like advisory to their community, because they're constantly getting people coming in for respiratory related issues. So would love to hear, or just curious to see how they changed that for this incident. But for similar to what Councilmember Hanif brought up about the private industry, again, my manufacturing area is pretty significant. And again, the air quality just a week and a half ago was terrible in this particular area. So curious if there is a plan, sustained plan for outreach about air quality in this area, or areas where we see that this is like habitually a problem independent from this. I'm really concerned because I don't believe that the private industry is incentivized in the way oftentimes that is responsible for workers, and these are workers that are loading and unloading and really susceptible to bad air quality. So curious if there is a plan in action. I know it's a little tricky because it's private, but would love to know if that is something, a request that I can make, or how we can further that discussion.
Yeah, I think we'd all welcome that conversation. The only other thing I would add to this is, and Corinne spoke about sort of the importance of some of these community-based organizations, but at New York City Emergency Management, we run a program called Strengthening Communities, where we have now close to 50 community-based organizations that we fund and train in emergency response. I would love to invite you in to sort of learn a little bit about the program, but also specifically see if there's any community-based organizations or networks in your district that we should be partnering with. And I think those conversations, those relationships, they know their districts, they know their issues better than we do, and they become such a critical partner to us in addressing some of these things. And so I think that might also be an access point for us addressing
Yeah,
this.
I would love to be a part of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your questions.
Councilmember Gennaro?
Thank you, Chair Brewer. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up a little bit. This is directed to Commissioner Iscol with regard to the DEC air monitoring. I keep talking about this. You were recently, well, just before you were talking to Councilmember Narcisse, and you framed your answer. You indicated that within the constraints of the forecast, within the constraints of the forecast, and once upon a time when I came into office many years ago, New York State had a brownfields program, and a pretty robust program, but it really didn't do right by New York City because the main contaminant in New York City brownfields is not one that was, it didn't qualify for the state program. So we went way out on a ledge and created like the first municipal brownfields program in the country, which was a lot of yelling and screaming, and it's still, the only one of its kind in the country. My point is that, the city took the initiative to create its own infrastructure, so to speak, to kind of deal with a pressing issue. And, before and yes, I am going to reach out to DEC and ask them about their, capability and could it be more, robust? They don't really have to listen to me. I'm wondering if you think it would be a worthwhile endeavor for the city to consider building its own apparatus in terms of forecasting bad air, for lack of a better way to put it. Do you think that is worthy of internal discussion within the administration to, create that apparatus, if you believe it's necessary? I'll take your guidance on this because you know it better than anybody.
I definitely don't know it better than anybody. I'm not a meteorologist. I've made that caveat before.
Well, I mean,
but look, I think that there's, it's a really good question. And I would want to go and speak to our on-staff meteorologist and some members, from our DEP and others to really talk about whether that would make sense before giving you an answer. But I'm happy to have a conversation with you about it and see if that makes sense.
That would be great. So how should we do this? I'm sort of like an action person.
I can give you my card after the meeting, or I can just have my team reach out and we can schedule something to have a conversation, invite you over.
That'd be,
have DEP there. And
that'd be great. And thank you, Beth. And so if you could, because I'm in touch with Beth all the time. So if you could, loop us all in on this and make that sort of like a formal request that should be, I don't necessarily want to put my finger on that. I don't want to put my thumb on the scale, but I think it's a worthwhile question to just ask internally or whatever. And maybe there are even, there are other entities, the city could do its own. There are other entities, I'll just pull a name out of the air, like, Columbia University, like, who knows? They got the, Earth Observatory and all that. Whether there is capability that even if we don't build a new one here in the city, that we could sort of triangulate with to see, because I'm hearing a lot about the constraints of the forecast. Now, the constraints of the forecast just could be the constraints of the technology, and for us to build an apparatus, it might not be any better than the one that they have in Albany. It may be not. And so I just think that's something that we I think it's worth a conversation. You seem to believe that. And Beth, if you
we're happy to coordinate that. We're certainly looking at ways that we can also monitor.
I'll be waiting for your call. Okay. All right. So thank you very much. And so that was what I had to add, Madam Chair. And with that, my questioning of this good panel is concluded.
Thank you, Council Member Lynch-Shulman. I just want to say one thing about masks, because I did check with staff. Yes, fire stations on Notify NYC, terrific, listed where the masks are. But when we called, Lynn-Shulman's just smarter than I am. She called directly herself. But the staff called, and we were told there were no 95s. So just add to your list in the future of debriefing that the mask outreach, when it's called for, if there are or there are not, but we were told there were no 95s, just FYI.
Okay, thank you.
So, Commissioner Iscol, just to add to your list of responsibilities. I attended an event in January with organized labor about the building of carbon-free schools. And so as we do developments of city buildings and schools and things like that, is there a way to make sure that air quality is built into that, or some kind of method so that the air quality is pure based on what's been happening? So that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking specifically about schools?
Schools, any kind of public entity.
Again, probably not the answer you want, but I would defer you to DOE, but I also know there was a lot of work done to HVAC systems, air purifiers during COVID. to the tune of thousands of installations, but I would defer to them to get you that information. And that was also true of municipal buildings.
Because I think even if, just a suggestion in terms of the protocol, that we need to take a look at the buildings that we have and the ones that are in development, like, for example, City Planning Commission, to say when they look at developments, when they get projects, before they certify them, maybe this is something they should look at as well.
Yep. Great.
So the other question I have, I know H&H is not here, so I'm going to ask DOHMH, but I would think that on the day that we had the extreme hazard of air quality, when people are being discharged from the hospital, would they get special instructions when they leave and get N95 masks? That's my question.
I will defer to H&H, but I'll say again that we did issue guidance for healthcare providers so that they would be able to counsel their patients.
Okay. Thank you very much. Those were my, I'm sorry, one other, Commissioner Iscol. So one of the things that was confusing during this whole process was that the governor's office very often would have a press conference, and we'd get notified as elected officials the same time the mayor or somebody on the city level was having it. So is there coordination with them around this, and should there be better coordination?
With the governor's office in particular, yes. And I was, throughout these events, I'm in constant communication with Jackie Bray, my counterpart.
Because I was notified about a press conference at the same time. The city was having a press conference, and it was hard, like, who's going to be where and where are we going and all that. So I just wanted...
And I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but part of this is like, I think sometimes these press conferences are called, you've heard it here before, because of the constraints of the forecast, right when the air monitors are hitting something. And so there is a time to target of having to be very quick. But I do hear you. Yeah.
We just want to have one coordinated message, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I would love that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember.
I think that the Committee on Oversight and Investigations asks for a lot of this guidance. I think we sent the letter on June 21st, and I know you answered some portion of it, but there were documents related to some of the adjustments of city operations and, things that we've mentioned, June 5th to 11th, whatever directives were issued from City Hall and from the mayor's office to city agencies, trying to clarify what we've been asking about which agency was doing what. And also, I think included in there was guidance for shelters. I know you mentioned it and then you did it. Are you going to be able to put that in writing as to what did take place in terms of those edicts, so to speak? Would that be something
you can answer? Are you speaking specifically for DSS?
I'm talking specifically from the mayor's office. In other words, all of the edicts that would have gone out between June 5th to the 11th regarding this issue. And then in addition, there was a request for guidance, what went out to the shelters or whatever DSS.
So I can't speak for the other agencies. I definitely can't speak for the mayor's office.
Okay.
I can pass along your request and would be happy to do that. Okay. And I would just want to caveat that with again, sound like a broken record, talking about sound like a broken record. We didn't have a forecast on the 5th or the 6th telling us that there was going to be a problem. So, right, we were amplifying the advisory, which is what we do up to dozens of times a year when we have a level of 100, which is, really fine for almost every New Yorker, right? It's unhealthy for some groups. It's in the just above the moderate category. So you're not going to see a lot on the 5th or the 6th because we didn't have a forecast of that. Okay. The 7th was the first day where we said, okay, now we have hazardous air. Now we are starting to do a lot of this stuff that you're talking about because that was the day that we actually knew we had hazardous air and knew we were going to have hazardous air.
So according to our material, the night of the 6th, it reached 218.
218, there's one sensor in the Bronx that showed 218 in the Bronx, and that is when we immediately started a lot of this coordination that we've been talking about.
Okay, and then it went to 254, and then finally, as we know,
484.
484, yeah.
Correct.
So those were right, but I'm just saying, so in order to get this information, you're telling us we have to write to the mayor's office and we have to write to DSS. It's always my impression that in these extreme emergencies, your agency, this is from my many years, really becomes the mayor's office in a sense of being in control and would, in fact, have all of this information, maybe not today, but would be able to get back to us. Is that not correct?
That is not correct.
Okay, so it's, all the different agencies are on their own in giving us information?
We are closely coordinating and managing, but, you know, they are actually doing they are doing the work. And the mayor's office is still running the show.
Okay,
And
so in order to get the information as to what they sent out to parks or to fire or whatever,
Right.
we would have to call them or contact them
Or go directly to the mayor's office and
and ask them to tell us what the agency sent out.
yeah.
Right, that's not what I understand how city government works, but I appreciate that. Are there any other questions?
And I will try and help you get that information as well.
No, I understand. It just seems to me that you should be in charge when there's an emergency, and the mayor's office should defer to you in getting the information to the public. Maybe we need a new law. I'm just saying. All right. Any other questions? Thank you very much, if not. Thank you,
Thank you. It's
panel,
good to
very
see you,
much.
Chair Brewer.
The next panel is...
Are we going to take a 5-minute break?
No.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We will now turn to public testimony. We will be limiting public testimony today to 3 minutes each. For in-person panelists, please come up to the table once your name has been called. For virtual panelists, once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and the Sergeant at Arms will set the timer and give you the go-ahead to begin. Please wait for the Sergeant to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. And I will announce the first panel momentarily. All right. For our first in-person panel, we will hear from Jared Williamson, Joel Kopferman, Michael O'Hara, and Joy Amanda.
Okay.
Did you sign to speak?
Please note that if you are here to testify in person, even if you registered to testify online, please see the sergeant's table to complete a witness slip. Thank you.
All right, whomever would like to begin, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jared Williamson. I am a legal intern from the Environmental Justice Initiative. I want to thank you for taking the time to hear my testimony today. I am here to talk about the need for an increase in improvement in cooling centers in the city of New York. We at the Environmental Justice Initiative are particularly concerned about access for these resources for people with disabilities, especially when seeking refuge from the Canadian fire smoke incident, as well as other similar environmental dangers. In accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, individuals with physical or mental impairments that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Discrimination for access to resources is strictly prohibited by that law. And one of the things that we are concerned about is that in 2022, 22% of cooling center facilities were not wheelchair accessible. We strongly urge the City of New York to take the necessary steps to ensure that these cooling centers are handicap accessible. Additionally, we strongly recommend that resource or supplies such as air conditioners and air purifiers are regularly updated in these cooling centers for individuals with asthma. We want to ensure cooling centers and clean, safe air centers in the City of New York are a very valuable resource, and we want to ensure that people with disabilities have equitable access to these facilities. And I will yield the rest of my time. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael O'Hora. I'm a law student at the Elizabeth Haub School of Law at Pace University, and I'm interning at the Environmental Justice Initiative with Mr. Joel Kupferman. This summer, New York City was inundated with smoke from wildfires in Quebec, Canada. The air quality was incredibly unhealthy during the period in early June, with an all-time record being set at 413 on the AQI scale on Wednesday, June the 7th, a level considered hazardous and a health warning of emergency conditions, according to airnow.gov. The city's response left much to be desired. I would like to focus on the existing air quality problems in New York City that were exacerbated by the city's non-response to this crisis. When proper precautions are not taken at construction sites, air quality can be worsened by the use of fossil fuel burning equipment and, more importantly, the disturbance of contaminated soil that introduces contaminants such as arsenic and lead into the air. During the air quality emergency in June, the city should have suspended construction activities to limit air quality from degrading further, but this did not happen. In the limited time I have, I would like to focus on one remediation site in particular at the NYCHA Jacob Riis houses located between Avenues D and Franklin D. Roosevelt Drive, spanning 2 superblocks from 6th Street to 13th Street. Construction activity at the site have disturbed the soil and caused it to become airborne, thus resuspending harmful compounds from the soil into the air that then enters resident apartments. We know that the soil contains alarmingly high levels of arsenic, lead, and other heavy metals, and so too does NYCHA and the City of New York, as the city was tested in 2007 for Con Edison. While the report may be dated, arsenic, lead, and other similar harmful contaminants are just simply elements on the periodic table, meaning that they do not degrade over time or break down into something else. Arsenic will always be arsenic, and lead will always be lead. New York City has the jurisdiction to stop construction at NYCHA developments during a crisis such as this. NYCHA cannot be the sole agency responsible for Riis residents and all other residents, as it has failed the residents in the past. As we know, all NYCHA developments are currently under federal monitorship due to the situation with lead abatement in resident apartments. And the solutions to this problem are not exceedingly complex. During this smoke emergency, the city should have suspended all construction activities and offered masks and other air filtering equipment, especially to its most vulnerable residents, some of which live in public housing. Even without the wildfire smoke, precautions could have been taken, such as covering the soil when work is being done and covering windows and AC units for residences on lower floors facing construction activity, and providing air filtration equipment for apartments closest to the construction activity. In short, New York City failed to protect its residents. In a recent Times article, Mayor Adams dismissed concerns from reporters that the city should have had a plan in place for the smoke. Professor Rebecca Bratsby from CUNY Law was quoted in the same article saying that the masks were distributed too late and that she herself had been monitoring the smoke since at least the previous week, so the city should have had some indication that such an emergency was going to happen. The City of New York must do better going forwards. Vulnerable populations are in these public housing developments, many of them with pre-existing health conditions due to 9/11. They need to be protected along with all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you very much. Joel Kupferman, Executive Director and Senior Attorney of the New York Environmental Law Initiative. I represent many community groups and workers after the 9/11 attack when nearby residents were told that the air quality was safe. And I think it's important to point out that it was DEC's reports, initial reports, that told us the air was safe, and they depended on their monitors. So I think it's really incumbent upon us not to just blame DEC, but not to just totally rely on DEC's warning system. It's brought up over and over again that this situation now is unprecedented. It's not. We have 9/11 to look at. We also have what happened with the COVID. I, as Michael pointed out, represent NYCHA residents where there's a lot of construction that's going on, where the soil's not covered. Why that's important is that it's the additive cumulative effect of the dust from Canada and with the local dust that's generated. New York City can control that dust by just enforcing the law and the regulations. I represent Esther Ragelson, who lives at 109 Washington Street, a 9/11 survivor with cancer. There's a brownfield site there. Construction continued on the worst day on the 7th. DEP, New York City, sent an inspector in to check the site based on our complaint, and we were told that they were just issued a violation because of visual dust. But that DEP inspector wasn't even aware that this was a brownfield site. So we have a major communications problem. The city is also liable that it's sending its own employees in to toxic sites during the worst times. Esther, on 7th, had a reading of 569 based on this monitor that's only $300, okay? The city health department and the state refused to monitor indoor air. We heard today that that's the center where all most of the problems are. They're also denying that that dust is going into people's air. The city Department of Health has a mandate and the equipment and the ability to monitor that air. I urge that City Council look into DOH's responsibility, and also that I take real affront that we kept on talking about sensitive populations. New York City, in terms of the EJ community and the elderly, have the highest rate of sensitive things. So we have a lot of problems in terms of equal protection, and also we believe that we're asking that. Okay, can I just finish?
Yeah, go ahead and finish quickly. Thank you.
Okay. We're asking. California was mentioned. We're going to present a copy of the California air law. There's a lot that could be borrowed for. They have much better control over construction sites in terms of reporting and enforcement. We want to increase injunctive relief to DEP and DOH. DEP told us when they spotted that air, they have no control over stopping that construction. When we met shortly after with the Department of Buildings, DOB was never informed by DEP that there was air problems there. So we have a major problem with interaction.
You need to wrap up.
Okay.
Because we have your testimony and we will certainly read it.
Okay. But I think it's important for the city not to just blame the state, that there's a lot of enforcement abilities, and that especially we're concerned about ongoing construction at brownfield sites, and also that city workers have a right for an obvious.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Next.
Just press the button, right?
There we go. My name is Joy from Queens, New York. Been in New York for almost 40 years. Birthday was actually this weekend. And I'm pretty disappointed with City Council right now, because I came in and the room was pretty full with my employees, and now my employees are gone. And as someone who has employed City Council, who is supposed to hear exactly what the people feel, exactly the opinions of whoever comes in and they want to give a statement to their employees, because we are the ones that are in charge, it's disappointing to see how many has left, especially the ones that are on the Committee of Health. Two of your members that are not here are actually on the Committee of Health, and they're gone. A lot of them are gone. It honestly should be, and from what I heard, there's 51 City Council members, they should all be here. Every last one of them, only for the simple fact that they all take an oath to office, they all take an oath to the Constitution, to the state constitution, and to the city charter. and it directly tells them what their job is. And their job is to do the will of the people. And they're not doing the will of the people. You take an oath. Everyone takes an oath. You take this job, you take an oath. 5 USC 3331 says that you take an oath. You are supposed to uphold the will of the people, the rights of the people, defend and protect them, and no one is here to listen to the people.
Well, we're here. There's some of us here. We're here listening.
But you know that's not enough. For the 8.4 million people that live in New York City, just the 6 of you in here, and it's actually 3 of you because you have committee council, it's not enough, and it's disappointing. But the question is, and if I could get a response, do you take an oath?
Yeah, we all take an oath. Yeah.
Have you submitted your oath?
Submitted oath, yes, we have.
Is it on file?
Yes.
Where can I find it?
Board of Elections, City Clerk.
Okay, do you take that oath serious?
We do, but.
Do you know that if you violate that oath, that violations can be brought up on you?
Yeah, can I just say, feel free to keep during your time period. We'd love to hear your opinions also on the issue at hand today, on the air quality. Would love to.
Well, I had to make that the foundation of whatever my discussion will be with you all, because again, as the employer, I am disappointed. And when an employer is disappointed with any job that you have, they're going to reprimand you and they're going to tell you where you're wrong. And this is where City Council is wrong. City Council says that they're going to do the will of the people and they're going to speak on their behalf. They're going to pass these ordinances, make policies and regulations, but then they're not here to listen to what the people have to say about that.
I just want to be clear, some people have other meetings. The people who brought the meeting, chairing the meeting are here. We're taking everybody's information very seriously, just so you know.
It's still disappointing. So that needs to be on the record.
That's fine.
That the employer, the boss, is disappointed with the employees.
Okay, but now your time is up.
Well, I'm going to continue speaking because it needs to be understood that City Council only has one job to do.
Okay.
And it's to uphold the will of the people, to uphold the rights of the people.
Okay.
You want to talk about the air, you want to talk about air quality, you want to talk about public health, you want to talk about regulations, what can be passed, what can be put in place, but no one is doing the will of the people or the rights of the people and upholding it.
Believe me,
you have no authority.
Okay, we are here making sure that laws get passed and we're listening carefully to make changes. That's why we're here. It's an
And the laws
oversight
would be
hearing.
for who?
The oversight hearing is to talk about air quality.
And
So
who are
if
these
you
laws
want,
for?
If you want to make some statements on that, fine. Otherwise, your time is up.
Who are those laws for?
The people of the city of New York.
Who are the people of the city of New York?
Ma'am, I can't go through this. There are other people who want to testify about air, okay?
And you're going to be
But
asked the
thank
same
you.
questions.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you in court.
testimony. Thank you very much for your testimony. The next panel.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll next hear from Eunice Coe, Janet Handel, Daniel Lin, and Domina DeBrenda Black. To announce the second panel once more, Eunice Coe, Janet Handel, Daniel Lin, and Domina DeBrenda Black. Eunice Coe, you may begin when ready.
Great. Good morning, Chairs Gennaro, Schulman, and Brewer, members of the council. My name is Eunice Coe. I'm the Deputy Director at the New York City Environmental Justice Alliance. Founded in 1991, NEJA is a nonprofit citywide membership network linking 13 grassroots organizations from low-income neighborhoods and communities of color all across the 5 boroughs in their struggle for environmental justice. Last month, the city was overwhelmed with orange skies, red moons, and choking smoke from the raging Canadian wildfires. The city literally gasped for breath as it turned gray, orange, and then red. "What the hell is this?" asked the mayor a little too late as he stepped outside. By the time the mayor had issued a statement late on Tuesday night, people were already getting headaches and chest pains, coughing, and are having trouble breathing. Neighbors, kids, families, and friends were scared and confused as we asked ourselves, fan or AC? How bad is it to leave a window open? What will this do to my health? One of our members who has a son with asthma and is the head of a nonprofit CBO in the South Bronx didn't know what was going on and what to tell her son when asked. But EM reaches out to CBOs and is doing everything they can on that front, right? New York City residents were left again on their own, and of course those most vulnerable, like the unhoused, delivery workers, and those with asthma and other health conditions suffer the most consequences. Asthma-related emergency visits spiked during this time, and many areas in the city like the Bronx reached AQI levels higher than 400. According to the Public Advocate's report, between June 6th and June 7th, the hospitalization rate in New York City jumped 81% to 317 ER visits on June 7th. Unsurprisingly, the New York City zip codes with the highest numbers of asthma-related emergency room visits during last month's smoke haze were disproportionately in low-income, predominantly Black and Latino communities, according to Gothamist analysis. According to EM Commissioner Zach Iscald today, though, these hospitalization rates are fine, as he repeatedly said today. I guess when we're talking about Black and brown communities, it's completely acceptable. This flies in direct contradiction to when he stated that EM, quote unquote, did everything to help vulnerable New Yorkers. Despite how unhealthy and hazardous conditions were, the administration didn't act swiftly and aggressively enough to alert the public and protect the most vulnerable. The administration failed to minimize the effects of the wildfire smoke by not providing timely notice and sufficient information, and failed to lead a strong interagency coordinated response. While the event on this scale was unprecedented, the administration could and should have done a lot more for a public health emergency at this scale, especially since as recently as 2 years ago, New York City's skies also turned hazy on July 13, 2021 from California wildfires, with our local air pollution levels spiking to unhealthy levels of over 100 AQI. So this is not the first time this has happened in this city. Commissioner Iscald kept talking about the forecasting constraints, but there is air quality data information that's available in real time. While these may not be projections, there is a ton of information and resources available. Before Commissioner Iscald said he had any information from the state. EPA updates federal monitors daily, and I was getting that information alerts from Google Maps alerts. Sorry, I'm almost done. The city could have canceled outdoor events, activities sooner, instituted a clearly communicated policy where all shelters would have to take in anyone in house seeking shelter, encourage other energy-saving, emission-saving activities like minimizing car use, household appliances, etc. The reality is that some communities in New York City experience bad air quality and pollution today. And these communities, again, are being burdened by wildfire events as such as today. We must anticipate, sorry, I'm almost done. We must anticipate and prepare for the unforeseen in order to keep our city safe and healthy. The city can't put New Yorkers in a position to respond and adapt to climate change completely on their own, whether it be from wildfires, flooding, or extreme heat, because it will mean our communities will suffer the most. If the administration's posture is to be defensive, deflect, and give polished non-answers and say we are doing everything we can, then we are in trouble because things are getting worse. We may not be perfect, as the EM Commissioner dismissively stated today, but we can be better.
Okay.
And I didn't hear that acknowledgement or responsibility from the administration today. Difficult to do is not an acceptable answer when climate change is increasing and people are dying.
Thank you very much. Next. Is it on?
Good afternoon. My name is Janet Handel, and I'm here wearing, I guess, actually 3 hats. I'm president of the Waterside Tenants Association and represent the 4,000 people living at Waterside. I'm also the president and co-founder of TRAPAG, that's Transplant Recipients and Immunocompromised Patient Advocacy Group. You see that I came today wearing a mask almost the entire time. I'm speaking without a mask now because I have a sterilization device that gives me like a cone of safe air. I'm also a member of the National Advisory Committee of Johns Hopkins Global Health Security Initiative on air quality. Vulnerable populations depend on you, the mayor, and the city agencies to keep us safe. In New York City, there are about 275,000 immunocompromised. We ask you to step up your engagement on air quality, both outdoor and indoor. First, I think you should raise public awareness on air quality, both indoor and outdoor, on what PM 2.5 is, why people should care about it, what CO2 is, and why you should pay attention to that when you're indoors. I would suggest that there be ongoing posting in the subway, on Link NYC, on city websites, so people are seeing this everywhere they go, 2.5. And what is that? Why do I need to know about that? What does that mean? Why it's better to have a good quality mask rather than a surgical mask? They need to understand that. If you give people the information, they will take appropriate action. Implement a public education program, Raise the Risk of 2.5 and other pollutants, so people understand why they should wear high-quality masks. Disseminate information on how to make do-it-yourself indoor air purification devices. They can be made very cheaply for about $30 and provide a level of safety in the home. direct building owners to close air takes on passive airflow systems. I didn't hear anything about this today. In our building, there are fans on the roof that blow air into every floor. Fortunately, our building shut them down, but there was no citywide mandate if you have, buildings, so all these places that are supposedly safe indoors, when they're blowing all that air indoors, is it really safe? Should you mandate that they upgrade their filtration system on these air intakes? Because this is going to be happening again and again and again. Our buildings are 50 years old. So I'm sure they don't have robust air filtration. I also think it's important to modify multifamily buildings to have one switch shutdown so that if an event of a bioterrorism event, in our building, they had to go to like 4 buildings, 8 floors to shut down all the fans. They did it, but that's not fast enough in certain circumstances. I encourage you to set guidelines for indoor air quality for CO2, PM 2.5, and ozone, and require public spaces to post visible monitors like this one I have right here. In Belgium, they are requiring this in any public space that there be monitors so people know. CO2 is a proxy for the amount of aerosols that are in the air, so in a time when COVID is very high and the CO2 level is very high, that's a dangerous place to be. I would also suggest that you suspend outdoor work and activity when levels go above a certain level. I saw construction workers working when the cloud was at its worst. So how did that happen? That should be suspended. And then identify distribution stations which will be used again and again so that it just gets ingrained in people's minds. When we have an air quality event or we have a COVID event and I need a mask, I know these are the 5 places I can look for a mask. The library, the fire station, the school, So that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm just a concerned free man living in Queens, New York, and we've heard all the talk about what will be brought to respond to air quality. My question is, for my employees, what legislation is being proposed for air quality? Who writes this legislation, for the record?
The legislation is drafted by the City Council drafting legislative staff.
Is that by the corporate council?
No, City Council staff, and then Corp Council and others look at it. It's a long process.
Okay. Well, you said corporate council. That's all I need for the record. Thank you.
I also want to let you know that there are a number of bills that are being introduced on air quality that I'm co-prime sponsor on. That's being done by Councilmember Keith Powers and Borough President Mark Levine.
Hey, that's good for the record, too, because that was my next question. Who are the co-sponsors? Just as a reminder, stating Marbury v. Madison, all laws, rules, and practices which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. So any legislation that's proposed by corporate counsel or co-sponsored by whichever of my employees want to co-sponsor it, if it violates my rights as a free man, it's null and void. It can't be enforced. And also citing Hostin v. Linham, there can be no limitation on the power of the people of the United States of America. By their authority, the state constitutions were made. By their authority, the Constitution for the United States. Because as was mentioned, my employees take a public oath to uphold the United States Constitution, the New York State Constitution, and the New York State Charter. So if my rights are violated, any legislation is null and void. It can't be enforced. You can submit any recommendations, suggestions, anything like that, but at the end of the day, it's my decision as a free man living in New York to make that decision for myself, how I protect myself, and all the other of your employers who employ you to uphold your oath. It's their right as free men and women to make that choice for themselves. And just to make it clear again, it's very disappointing how nearly every one of my employees has left this meeting. Everyone should be here to listen to the will of the people, and that clearly is not being done, not just when it pertains to air quality, but when it pertains to other matters as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon or good morning. I'm known professionally as DJ Black, but you may call me Domina. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself as an individual woman living on the land of New York. I would like to say, though, that I do volunteer with several groups, including but not limited to Log Cabin Republicans New York, the Conservative Republican Alliance. I also am the co-founder of the Lexington Third Block Association and the founder of TFK TWA, Training Foster Kids to Work with Animals, a nonprofit academic program. Our dual mission is to prepare foster kids for adulthood and help animals at the same time. All my opinions, though I associate with those groups and views, are my own and do not necessarily reflect the views of those groups. I would like to make a brief statement and then I have a question. My statement is that I was listening today and I was hearing a lot of appeal to authority arguments. And if we look at history, these same agencies are the agencies that said it was okay to operate on infants without anesthesia because they said babies wouldn't remember and wouldn't feel pain. That was happening till the 1980s. Some of these organizations that the appeal to authority that is being used to make these decisions are the same authorities that sterilized Puerto Rican women from the 1930s up into the 1980s, saying that it was for the public health. I would also mention the Tuskegee experiments, I may be saying that wrong, where black men were given syphilis so that the doctors could see the effects of it. This was done in the name of public health. So I get very concerned when things are brought forth about things for the public health, especially as a woman from the gay community and a woman who is Latino. We often are the ones who get experimented on, and it concerns me greatly that the decisions that are being made are so shaky. Even today, there was arguments back and forth between who's telling the truth, who has the facts. There's no substantial way to tell the air quality. And also, I would like to say, could the person who is from the Public Advocate's office please raise their hand? Okay, when the public advocate left, I asked him, I said, is somebody going to be here for the public when we speak? You're our advocate. He said, someone will be here. There's no one here. I would like to echo the sentiment of earlier citizens that it is not right that you leave, not you, but that your peers and the people that we elect our public servants to serve us leave. Like, how do you know the will of the people if you don't listen? And I'd also like to say, as far as climate change, I'm 54 years old. Since I was 5 years old, I was told that the sky was gonna fall regarding the weather. In the 70s, I was told the world was gonna end in 2000.
You need to wrap up.
I think that my point is made in that, and I would also just like to say in wrapping up, please remember the Puerto Rican women who were sterilized in the name of public health. Please don't make the same mistake. I bless you all. God bless you. I think you have good intentions. And also, I would just like to say, where can I find your oaths of office? Because I never heard of that before, and I would like to read them. Can you tell me where I can find them?
They're all the same, and they're at the city clerk's office.
So every single councilman.
All the same.
And does the public advocate take the same one?
Yes, he does. But can I say, there's a lot more people who want to testify.
Okay, I just wanted to add that. That was it. That was my last question. I just wanted to ask where I could find those
Thank you
oaths.
very much. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you for your testimony. We will now turn to our final in-person panel, and we will hear from Morgarile Chandler, Donna Janelle Romo, Eric Rossi, Shanae, Tana, and Miles Aiken. If you're here to testify in person and you have yet to hear your name called, remember, please go to the sergeant's table to fill out a witness slip. Thank you. Once more, the final in-person panel will consist of Morgarile Chandler, Donna Janelle Romo, Eric Rossi, Shanae, Tana, and Miles Aiken.
Whomever would like to start, go ahead. Thank you. You could go ahead. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Tana from Brooklyn. And I want to start off by also sharing the same concern as to half of this panel being non-existent, for the record. First question is, what is your definition of public?
Okay, this is usually you testifying, so go ahead and talk about air quality, and then we can ask if you...
Based upon the answer is how I will proceed.
Public is the public speaking, and the elected officials listening, and the public being listened to. I'm here to listen to. I'm an elected official. We're here listening very carefully, and there are also people listening online.
Fantastic.
But I would like to hear what you have to say about the air quality.
So on the record, that's your definition of public. So now what's your definition of public health?
Well, can you testify? That's what I want to hear. If you have something to say, that would be great. I really want to hear what you have to say. That's what I need.
As men and women of the land of New York, when we come to these hearings and we share what we have to share, and tell us what we're going to say is not going to work, okay? You guys take an oath to the Constitution to adhere to the men and women of who you serve. So again, what is your definition to public health?
Public health to me means we want to keep New Yorkers healthy. And your testimony...
You want to keep
all of us
New Yorkers healthy.
I do. But I really want to say there are a lot of people who want to testify about public air health. If you'd like to make your comments, they would be much appreciated.
So the reason I ask is because when you implement any of these policies or laws or bills, we want to know who exactly that is addressed to. And when you look at the term, say, for example, person, you say a lot in your paperwork, in your verbiage. A lot of that has the term person and public health, and so forth. So with that being said, the definition of a person will let me know whether or not what you're proposing holds any authority over the men and women of NYC. So a person, according to reference 15 USC Section 7, 26 USC Section 7, I am wrapping it up.
You need to wrap up. Thank
Defines
you.
person as an officer or employee of the corporation. Therefore, these policies that you're looking to implement apply to you. And with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Go ahead, next person.
Hi, my name is it on? No. Hi, can you hear me now? Okay, my name is Marguerite Chandler, and I live in Brooklyn, and I'm a member of the Medical Freedom Party. We have 20 people running this November for City Council. One of the major issues we have is with the lockdown and with the mandated injections. It's come out that the so-called science that everybody claims was real science didn't actually protect anybody, didn't actually protect us. And actually people died as a result, and businesses were lost that aren't coming back. So we're very concerned that this issue about air quality will turn into another mandated lockdown, everybody wear masks, and what other kind of it's dictatorial. It's basically taking, a mandate is a dictator, a dictation or an edict from the Roman times by the Caesar, by the king. We gave that up. That's why we're Americans. That's our identity. Our identity is the Bill of Rights, okay? That's what gives us our identity as Americans. That's the only identity we have, because all of us come from different places. That's what we are proud of. And we can't have officers of the court or judges or governors telling us that we no longer have a right over our own body. to decide whether we want to have an injection, a mask, whether we have to close down our business. We need to have our Bill of Rights. That's number one. And it is true when people bring up the oath of office, when you take an oath of office, you're take an oath to defend that Constitution, and that hasn't been done. Now, I know that I don't have time. I'm going to write up everything I want to say, and I'm going to publish it, and I'm going to send it to you guys so you'll know the full story in the context of what I'm talking about.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next.
Hi, my name is Donna.
Push the button. Push the button.
I guess that would help, wouldn't it? Hi, my name is Donna, and I am in agreement that I am not happy as far as the fact that what has been done already as far as these laws or policies and the fact that people aren't here. I would like to present something that furthers the negative impact of the air quality pollution and those affected, those with asthma, those with problems with their respiratory, as well as tinnitus and everything like that. And that is wireless devices, antenna networks, and data centers are consuming an ever-increasing portion of the global energy supply based largely on coal. Our energy calculation, this is by reinventing the wires. Now here we have something from the Center for Energy Efficient Telecommunications. Wireless access networks are clearly the biggest and most inefficient consumer of energy in the cloud environment. 5G is considered an energy hog. And you guys are talking about wanting to get to the 0 point, and yet you have this kind of industrial pollution that only impacts that and furthers a negative impact of everything that's already going on. You have an increase by 2015, this is older. Wireless cloud will consume up to 43 TWh compared to only 9.2 TWh in 2012, an increase of 460%. Hello? This is an increase in carbon footprint. And this goes from 30 megatons of CO2 in 2015, the equivalent of adding 5.9 million cars to the roads. And we're trying to keep out the cars, right? Is this start and everything that's going on now, are we trying to get more towards that 15-minute city, as they call it? So this has been just totally ignored. I, as a therapist, I know personally of people who have to live in their bathroom because it's shielded, sleep in a parked car in a garage because there's a shielding, and also you may know of Maria, who was from New York City, who committed suicide because of the suffering and isolation, which has been completely ignored by any of the organizations here in New York City as far as how much they suffer. So I am bringing that to as far as nothing is being done, and we are just, there's always solutions for fast, safe, and secure internet connections. So that is what I am bringing to all of this as far as air quality, as far as what seniors, people with asthma, tinnitus, if you want to call it, and all sorts of other things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hello. I'm Eric Rossi from East 10th Street in Lower Manhattan. Now, when the commissioner was speaking, as he said, this is an absolutely unprecedented event occurring at the beginning of June with that gigantic cloud of smoke, which we've never seen before in New York City. And how did that happen? How could such a massive cloud emerge out of Canada? That's never come before. It's never happened before, as he said. So there's only one way that can happen. 14 separate fires, all erupting simultaneously. All erupting simultaneously in southern Quebec, hundreds of miles apart. If one fire erupts, and 3 hours later another fire erupts 100 miles away, or 4 hours later another, The wind change will take the smoke in various directions. In order to produce a gigantic cloud of smoke like that, you have to have all fires occurring at the same time so that the smoke cloud concentrates and develops and then carries forth in the same direction, the same concentration. That's what actually occurred at 9:30 a.m. on the morning of June 2nd. Now, how do we know that? There's a college in Illinois called the College of DuPage, which monitors and aggregates information from the weather satellites that are above the continent of the United States. Now, that college put out a video of the monitoring of what was occurring in southern Quebec at that time, and 14 separate fires all erupted simultaneously, and they are many miles apart. It's not like one fire led to another. It all happened at once. Now, there are some arson investigations going on in Canada over various fires, but as far as I know, nothing is happening with that investigation. You're the committee that can do something about that. This was an attack on this city. That massive cloud of smoke didn't happen in a natural way. So I'm urging this committee to look at the information that we'll provide to the Department of Emergency Management and also to you yourselves, to take a look at how these fires could possibly erupt simultaneously.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thank you. Next.
Thank you. Let me make sure. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear myself, so I'm assuming you can hear me. My name is Miles, M-I-L-E-S, Aiken, A-I-K-E-N. And I'm from Harlem, and I'm from the #1 sports youth saving program in the world, which is called the Rucker Park. That's not because I call it that. That's because it's recognized as such. The first thing I want to say...
That's Bob's Park, right? That's
I'm
Bob's.
sorry, so did someone say something?
I did. It's Gail Brewer. That's Bob's Park. We call it Bob's.
I'm sorry, what is...
Go ahead. Never mind, sir. Go ahead.
Bob's Park?
Oh, Bob's Park. That's Bob McCullough, who we call the commish. Well, he calls himself the commish.
Go ahead, sir. Sorry. I just
But anyway, the first thing I want to express, because I know you've been here a while, and we just got here, is that I want to thank Congresswoman Brewer for, she's well documented, and I know personally that she's one of the most significant, open, caring politicians of this city. And through that, we have the chance to hear all of the contributions. And I'm not a paid political activist, okay? So I want to make sure that I'm clear, for me, as a representative of Harlem, a low-income community that is documented now globally, low-income communities suffering in these types of disasters, okay? The second thing I've asked to come and testify is because on my cell phone, I have documented that I spotted the initial ignition of the fires in Alberta, Canada. Alberta, Canada is the seat of the Canadian fossil fuel industries, which is still like the fossil fuel industries across the globe, refusing to close down because you, these wonderful people, and you people there refuse to leave your houses and live in nature and give up with your 10 pairs of sneakers per person. And that is what is causing, that's one of the main causes of the well-documented now acknowledgement across the globe that humankind is in a climate crisis, okay? Now, in due respect to the gentleman that just left here, 14 fires is without a doubt excluded because I've spotted, and I have it on my cell phone, having text to my colleague, because his family lives in California. I texted him and said, a fire just broke out in Alberta, and I'm concerned that these smokes are going to come down on the west side of the United States. Now, we also have to...
Sir, you need to wrap up if you can, when you can.
I need to wrap up?
Yep.
Okay, I will wrap up. The fact that this hearing is taking place possibly on the shoulders of Mayor Adams is erroneously placed. I understand it's timely. The politicians before him have made similar errors, and in actual fact, the governor should have been included in this reputation because the fire smoke came from the north, and it came from the second group of fires
Sir, you need to
that
wrap
broke
up.
which is Nova Scotia. And I will end with, there are now 550 individual fires in California. The firefighters that came in from Europe, the French, said exactly this to New York City. You're concerned about a little bit of smoke? These fires are unstoppable.
Okay, sir, you need to wrap up. If you
Okay,
don't mind.
that is the wrap up.
Okay.
You have 500 fires, 250 being treated, the rest being allowed to burn, and we think that they may go out this fall because fall is supposed to go cool, and we're now heading into the hottest summer. We're into the hottest summer ever recorded on the planet Earth.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so
There you
much.
go.
Next,
There you
over
go.
there. Thank you.
That's it. Hello, hi. Shanae, formerly known as
where are you at?
Jane Doe to the court system.
Let's go.
This is my first time speaking as a living woman under God, so I would ask that my words do not be misconstrued. I am a 33-year-old mother, two-time brain surgery recipient, and I don't want any pity, but I do want to acknowledge that as I'm sitting here today with my son and my daughter and trying to keep my emotions under control, I do want to reiterate that you have on the top of your place, we the people, government of the people, by the people, for the people. I do not see any representatives for the public or we the people. And again, just to reiterate what your laws are, there can be no limitation on the power of the people of the United States of America. By their authority, the state constitutions were made by, and by their authority, the Constitution of the United States of America was established. That's the Hohenstein versus Lenham. The United States Supreme Court declares that the sovereignty remains with the people and resides with the people. That's Yickwold versus Hopkins and Woolley Hopkins. No action can be taken against a sovereign in the non-constitutional courts of either the United States or the state courts, and any such action is considered the crime of barratry. Barratry is an offense at common law, so I'm not sure what we're under. It sounds like we're under deprivation of rights under the colorable law. I don't see any action of ecclesiastics law. Not sure if we are noticing that we are under God at the end of the day with the air. You cannot control what happens when God does anything to the air, or if you guys continue with your agenda for the air, for the people. But I do request that you hear the people, report to us in a fashionable manner that we are being heard and not just ignored, because no one is here to really see or hear anything that we're saying, except for you all. I heard someone ask if there was a representative. There is no one here for the people. So if you guys are if you all are for the people and you're working for us or employees for, where are the actions? You want to know our thoughts. When we say our thoughts, it never gets heard. And I don't want to have a pity party. I just want you to realize that it affects us, my generation. I am a product of the system. Your court system, your child support, single family home. Now I'm a single parent raising 2 children. So it affects my children to be coerced by this city or any official stating that we have to inject anything or take anything in our bodies that don't belong. And I have disability issues, and now my children have asthma due to the fact that we've been programmed to take these vaccines and been charged under authority. Like, this is not how God's laws work, if you understand the ecclesiastics law. So that's my time.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the entire panel. The next panel is a Zoom panel. Thank you very much.
And I may mention that Maria committed suicide because of the pain that she was experiencing.
Thank you for your testimony. We will now turn to Zoom panelists. For virtual panelists, once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and the Sergeant at Arms will set the timer and give you the go-ahead to begin. Please wait for the sergeant to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. We will first hear from Dr. Lucky Tran, followed by Myra Batchelder, followed by Miranda Stinson.
You may begin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for organizing this really important hearing. My name is Dr. Lucky Tran, and I'm a scientist and public health communicator who works at Columbia. I'm a member of the COVID Advocacy Initiative, and I'm a climate justice organizer who has attended several UN climate meetings. It's really important that we're absolutely clear here. We are in a climate emergency. We're experiencing the hottest days on record, 1 in 1,000-year floods, and world-leading levels of air pollution. This isn't a once-off. The science tells us that things will continue to get worse. The wildfire smoke we've been experiencing is harmful. And let's get this right. It's not just the vulnerable at risk. We are all at risk. The small particles found in polluted air can cause serious acute and long-term, yes, long-term health issues like heart damage, lung damage, and possibly even cancer. The government needs to provide resources to protect people from the dangers of smoke, and one of the most effective tools we have are N95 masks. The city should be providing N95 masks for free because not everyone can afford high-quality masks. And many essential workers, they can't be inside. They need to be outside for their jobs. They should be provided free masks so that they can do their work safely. Climate change has unequal impacts. Providing free masks is one thing the city can do to address this inequity. It was fantastic that the city and the state provided free N95 and KN95 masks at MTA stations and other locations during the smokiest days. But honestly, it's not enough to do this just for a couple of days a year, and it's done far too late. Behavioral change takes time, and you can't get an effective public health message across only at the last minute. To effectively protect themselves, people need to access masks in advance, and they need to know where to get them all year round. And you know what else masks help with? Airborne viruses like COVID and the flu. In fact, many New Yorkers and advocacy groups have been calling for free masks for these very reasons for the last couple of years. Why have these calls been ignored? Why don't we have an easily accessible permanent free mask program in place by now? COVID's still around at higher levels and harming many. I urge the city to make it a priority to put in place a permanent free N95 mask program so that people can access free masks in reliable locations at any time of year. In addition to free masks, the city needs to get its act together about warning people in advance about the health threats like bad air quality and high levels of COVID. Earlier warnings, more alerts, regular announcements on the news, more public signage, more coordination with trusted messengers is essential, as is investing in infrastructure to clean the air indoors. Places like Korea, Taiwan, Belgium, Spain are doing this. New York should be a leader too. Climate change is one of the biggest public health threats of our time. It would be absolutely reckless to ignore this and think that we don't need to make any big changes. We can't afford to go through more cycles of panic, neglect, panic, neglect. We need a long-term and consistent game plan for climate. We need our public health policies to reflect that we are living in an climate emergency. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll now hear from Myra Batchelder, followed by Miranda Stinson, followed by Leslie Vasquez.
Hi, thank you for holding this hearing. My name is Myra Batchelder, and I lead COVID Advocacy Initiative. I want to thank the city for providing free N95 and KN95 masks during the wildfire smoke last month, and to urge the city to put in place an ongoing free N95 and KN95 mask distribution program for the public moving forward. Everyone has a right to protect themselves from unhealthy air quality as well as COVID, which is still a serious health concern. Protecting yourself should not depend on your financial ability to purchase masks, but unfortunately it does. The federal government ended their free N95 mask distribution program in pharmacies around a year ago. New York City provided free masks directly to some businesses and organizations. However, there's been no public list available of where the general public could access free masks before. Our organizations and others have advocated for this months for the city to provide free N95 and KN95 masks to the public. We sent a letter signed by 18 organizations in December urging the city to improve and expand free N95 mask distribution, and we met with city officials. We urged free N95 masks to be given out at community locations that provide free rapid tests and other locations, and urged the city to advertise where the public can access free N95 and KN95 masks. We have had many community members reach out asking how to get free masks. Previously, 311 directed people to the federal program. However, after the program ended, when I personally called 311, I was told they were telling people just to go to dollar stores to get cheap surgical masks. Our organization and many community groups have been providing free masks to the public, but we need an expanded ongoing program led by the city where the general public knows where to access free N95 and KN95 masks. It was great to see free masks being provided to the public during the unhealthy air quality last month. However, it was frustrating that people had to go out in unsafe air quality in order to access them. It would have been much better if people had access to free masks ahead of time. We also urge people handing out free masks to the public to wear masks to help protect people from COVID as well. It was striking to see all the photos of people that were great handing out masks inside, but we know that COVID is still a risk and they were largely handing them out while unmasked themselves. It was striking also when news reports in February showed New York City had excess N95 and KN95 masks. However, the city sold them off for pennies on the dollar instead of providing them to the public who needs them. New York City air quality has been at unsafe levels and is expected to continue. New York City wastewater is still showing high levels of COVID. COVID and long COVID are still a risk. We need to help people protect themselves and their families. New York City needs to provide free N95 and KN95 masks to everyone who needs them and make them accessible to the public in known locations. And we need this to be an ongoing program. In addition, New York City needs to invest in clean air infrastructure, including air purification. And the city also needs to improve alerts and public education for the public. Thank you for the time today.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll next hear from Miranda Stinson, followed by Leslie Vasquez, followed by Cynthia Norris.
Time start now.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Miranda Stinson. I live in Queens, New York. And I'm here today to talk about grassroots community responses to the recent air quality emergency and to compare those grassroots responses with the response from city officials. And I do want to apologize if there are any sound issues. Like many New Yorkers, I have substandard air conditioning, so I've got kind of a loud fan going to the side of me, but I hope that you can hear me okay. So I'm speaking to you today as a founding member of a grassroots public health collective called COVID Solidarity NYC. We were formed in response to the ongoing COVID pandemic and the erasure of disabled and medically vulnerable people from society, from healthcare institutions, et cetera. However, we've also been active in the emergency response to the wildfire smoke, and that's because we were prepared to, and in many ways better prepared to than the actual city officials were. In the month of June, working with our partner organization, the People's PPE, which is a student-led group based both in New York and in Connecticut, we distributed more than 8,000 masks. That was just in the month of June. And specifically in the week of the air quality emergencies, we were able to get masks out to organizations and individuals doing pop-up emergency community distributions in Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, and the Bronx. So all boroughs except for Staten Island. Many of these were organized at extremely short notice via text messages and social media, but we were able to pull it off. And I want to mention that because sorry, I've lost track of my thought a little bit, but we were able to pull it off at short notice, I guess is the important thing to mention. And a lot of that involved us also just dropping off donations of masks to people, which meant our membership, who are largely disabled and medically vulnerable, being out in this unsafe air, even though we really shouldn't have been. So personally, I can attest to symptoms that I had were migraines to the extent that they affected my mobility, burning throat, burning eyes, and chest pain. I would be somebody who should not be outside in the smoke, but I needed to be able to get these masks out to people. So to contrast that, what we were able to do with the government's response, there was, as many people have mentioned today, there was little to no communication until the emergency was in full swing. And just as an example of that, I work at a school of public health. I was in the office on Wednesday the 7th. I would not have come into the office if I had realized how bad it was going to be. There were many people in the office, none of whom had any idea. And this is highly educated people who work in public health. There was no communication. And then, as several people have mentioned, very few locations to pick up masks. I hear the things that were said earlier about, this distributions that were supposedly done, but I certainly didn't see them. The only place that I was able to access masks being handed out from the city was at Grand Central subway station. And the masks themselves were inadequate and not being handled in a manner that was compliant with any kind of safety regulations. So these are the masks that I was given at Grand Central. As you can see, they were not individually packaged.
Thank you very much. You need to wrap up. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Well, okay. I do want to emphasize these are not appropriate masks to be given out. I was going to show examples of the masks that are more appropriate. These are the types of masks that we give. It's the 3M Aura, which is the top of the line that healthcare workers use. This is also manufactured by 3M. It's the Flex N95. These are both appropriate.
Thank
this
you.
is a mask that's used by construction workers. It's not appropriate.
Thank you very much.
Also, I would like to just say that our organization supports the demands of the COVID Advocacy Initiative for a city-funded mask distribution program, and ideally one that mails masks to people so that they don't have to go into subway stations and police precincts to access safety materials, because that's not safe for them to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We'll next hear from Leslie Vasquez, followed by Cynthia Norris, followed by Mbake Tiam.
You may begin.
My name is Leslie Vasquez, and I am a Bronx resident and the Clean Air Program organizer at South Bronx Unite. I'm here today to express my deep concerns regarding the lack of response from New York City government to the recent air quality emergency caused by the devastating wildfires in Canada. It is evident that the city's response was inadequate, especially considering the vulnerability of communities such as Mott Haven and Port Morris in the South Bronx, which are already grappling with numerous challenges. Mott Haven and Port Morris have been overburdened by an alarmingly high concentration of polluting facilities and infrastructure for decades. Our community is ground zero for power plants, waste transfer stations, and other industrial facilities that result in severe air pollution, toxic emissions, and overall environmental degradation. The impact of poor air quality on public health cannot be overstated. Our residents are among the most vulnerable in our city, facing a myriad of socioeconomic disparities and health inequities. The worsening air quality resulting from Canada air wildfires exacerbated these existing challenges and disproportionately affected the health of the residents in our neighborhoods. We already face higher rates of asthma, cancer, and other respiratory illnesses compared to other parts of the city. Despite the known vulnerability of our communities, New York City government failed to provide the necessary resources from the outset. It is deeply disheartening that an emergency response plan tailored to address the unique needs of these neighborhoods was not in place. The residents of Mott Haven and Port Morris deserved immediate access to healthcare services, including respiratory support and information on how to protect themselves from hazardous air conditions. Our city should have had a robust system of health resources readily available to respond to emergencies, ensuring that individuals in vulnerable communities have access to the care they desperately need. Increased rates of respiratory illnesses, exacerbation of pre-existing conditions, and diminished quality of life are just a few examples of the dire consequences resulting from the lack of a timely response. It is imperative that we hold our city's leadership accountable for their negligence and demand immediate action to rectify the situation. New York City government must prioritize the health and well-being of its residents, particularly those in marginalized communities who continue to suffer from decades of discriminatory public policies and poor planning decisions. New York City government must implement robust policies, robust emergency response plans, ensuring adequate healthcare resources, and proactively addressing environmental concerns. And beyond this emergency response, it is well past time that the mayor and policymakers direct adequate resources to ensure that South Bronx residents can simply breathe clean air. Thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We'll next hear from Cynthia Norris, followed by Mbake Tiam, followed by Hayden Brockett.
You may begin.
Hey guys, sorry, I just have trouble unmuting. Hey, my name is Cynthia Norris, and I am a mother of two and a resident of Brownsville, Brooklyn. Last month, even before the sky turned orange, I had to take my asthma treatment. The prednisone pill I take makes my body shake, and it prevents me from being able to breastfeed my newborn. On the morning when the city air quality was worse in the world, I had to choose between pumping breast milk for my child or taking another pill for my asthma. When you're breastfeeding, you have to like you can't be stressed or worried, like, because then the milk won't come out. Because even if you're worried, right? As I walk downstairs, I start to feel my chest get tighter, even even before I even went outside. I'm glad I wasn't rushed to the emergency room, but I was worried that I may have to go to the emergency room. Like many other New Yorkers with asthma, I would never want anybody to go through this, right? But I fear that I have to, right? Um, Even if this was have to occur again. In 2019, the New York City Council passed a landmark climate law, Local Law 97, with 70% of our city climate heating pollutions coming from energy use in a building. This law will cut pollution from the buildings, and it will help me breathe easily and save money for me and my family by lowering the utility bills and creating tons of hundreds of jobs across the city. 4 years later, we will still be waiting for the final rule to be released by the Eric Adams administration, and that Mayor Adams will amend the city. Stop. City Council amendment by weakening the law, delaying it even longer. Meanwhile, we have worsened air quality and flooding, and it's hurting our health even worse, right? The New York City Council must ensure that the Mayor Adams does not gut the important climate law and cave into the real estate and weaken it by delaying the local laws 97. Thank you for having me, and thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We'll next hear from Mbake Tiam, followed by Hayden Brockett.
You may begin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mbake Tiam. I'm the housing. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mbake Tiam. I'm the Housing and Health Committee Organizer at Center for Independence of the Disabled, Sydney. Sydney is the voice of the people with disability in New York City. We are a nonprofit organization founded in 1978. We are part of the Independent Living Center movement, a national network of grassroots and community-based organizations that enhance opportunities for all people with disabilities to direct their own lives. I'm here to testify about the danger of wildlife smoke and the air quality emergencies. Many of the particles in the wildfire smoke have a detrimental impact on our health system. These particles are so small that they enter and lodge deep in the lungs. The pollution particles trigger asthma attacks, heart attacks, and strokes. That means that they can kill someone with lingering illness. And they have so people who are more vulnerable are people who may not have healthcare coverage, but also people with disability and people who are middle classes or may not have opportunities to get themselves healed. So I'm here to say that we are expecting from the mayor and all elected officials, including council members and the governors, to find drastic measures in helping our community, in helping New Yorkers. And we also want to find ways that will be safe for children with developmental disabilities. Thank you so much. I will be very short in my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We'll next hear from Hayden Brockett.
You may begin.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you.
Wonderful. My name is Hayden Brockett, and I'm testifying today because about air quality. Because last month's air quality emergency shows us how important it is to protect our lungs every day. I'm grateful to Chairwoman Brewer, Chairwoman Schulman, and Chairman Gennaro, and all the members for today's hearing. And I want to speak directly to you about legislation. I know a piece of The question about legislation came up earlier, and I'm asking that Chairman Gennaro schedule a vote immediately on Introduction 684, which is presently pending before the Committee on Environmental Protection. I'm asking Chairwoman Brewer and Schulman, who already support this legislation, to urge that a vote, in fact, happen. There's already been a hearing. There's a few technical fixes that are already in the works, and we just need a vote because this important common sense bill will improve New York's air quality overnight. My sons and I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and we're just next door to Chairwoman Brewer's district. We're exposed, like all New Yorkers, every day to far too much air pollution. And pollution from idling cars, trucks, and buses is especially troubling because it serves no purpose at all. And so while we cannot solve Canadian wildfires here in New York, we can control the baseline air pollution in New York City. We have in New York the most successful citizen environmental program in the world, which lets ordinary New Yorkers work with the Department of Environmental Protection to enforce air quality laws that have already been on the books for 50 years. And I was glad to hear today that Ms. Falco from the DEP mentioned in her testimony the importance of cutting the pollution that we emit here in New York. I agree completely. And that is why I'm urging Chairman Gennaro to schedule a vote on Intro 684 immediately. It already has a majority support in the council, and it's a simple common sense bill that will increase the fines on motor vehicles that illegally and wastefully idle their engines in our city. The current fines are unfortunately too little. They're just the cost of doing business for big companies like Amazon, Con Ed, and Verizon. They let their trucks idle. They pay the existing fines because that's just the cost of doing business, because even the maximum penalties are too low to have an impact, and that needs to change. Intro 684 will make idling penalties have a meaningful effect, and Intro 684 will very likely cause companies to stop idling overnight. That will ensure that when the next time smoke from California or Canada wafts over our city, our air here will already be cleaner. And when we improve that baseline, we will then be better adapted to climate emergencies in the future. And I'm hopeful that Chairman Gennaro will schedule a vote on Intro 684 immediately, and that Chairwoman Brewer and Schulman will also support that as well. And I really appreciate today's hearing, and thank you so much. And please bring Intro 684 up for a vote. Thank you.
I'll take this opportunity to speak on 684 briefly. This is a top priority for the committee and for the council. The bill is currently being negotiated. And other than saying it's a top priority for the council and for the sponsor and for me, I'll just leave it at that. So this bill is in its final stages of negotiation. So thank you for your interest in Intro 684.
Thank you. I'm grateful, Chairman. We're looking for a clean single vote on that. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Chair Gennaro, and thank you very much for your testimony. We have now heard from everyone who has signed up to testify. If we inadvertently missed anyone who would like to testify in person, please visit the sergeant's table and complete a witness slip now. If we inadvertently missed anyone who would like to testify virtually, please use the raise hand function in Zoom, and I will call on you in the order of hands raised. Seeing no one else, I would like to note that written testimony, which will be reviewed in full by committee staff, may be submitted to the record up to 72 hours after the close of this hearing by emailing it to testimony@council.nyc.gov. And I would like to now turn it back over to Chair Brewer.
Hi, before Chair Brewer speaks, I just want to thank everyone for participating today. This was a very robust hearing, and we look forward to follow up with the administration and with advocates. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to echo those words and state that we will take every testimony seriously. We will follow up with the administrations in writing, but more importantly, we want to say to the public, we hope that this is a process that improves in the future despite whatever took place in the past. The whole purpose is to keep people healthy now and in the future. Thank you very much. This hearing concludes, and thank you to the staff.